I believe we are all the way live. We are all the way live. Welcome, everybody, to yet another BTR stream. This is going to be a big one. We have Joel Davis, Gio Panacchetti, Alexander Bard, Real Old Paul, a.k.a. Paul Town, and we are going to have Logo Daedalus a bit later on. Everybody, get Logo to come in here. He has to face the fact that this stream is going on. It is live, and he better get his ass in here. Anyway.
Better face the truth!
Or face the truth. Anyway, welcome, everybody, once again. Subscribe, and keep on subscribing in order to grow this channel. We depend on you. Patreon.com/breaktherules. I'm going to be posting all these links and more. But let's get right into it from Paul Town. I mean, we should do probably small introductions.
Well, first of all, I wanted to say something, Lev.
Yeah.
First of all, before we start. Now, I'm also in the same Hawaiian shirt I was the first time we had this epic mega stream, the meeting of the minds, meeting of hearts and souls. I feel that what we're doing here is special because all of us on this panel, even the one that's not here yet, all of us, we know the, what was I going to say? We know the struggle and the pain and the pleasure even of trying to create something genuine in all of our own ways by making an impact and going out there and trailblazing and trying to etch out something for ourselves that we think is meaningful. And this is, to me, this discourse that we're having between all of us, it's so special to me. And truly, I am privileged and honored to call every one of you my friends. So let's, even if we're going to tear each other's throat out by the end of the stream, but it's an immense pleasure, immense honor. And I love you all. And also out there to everyone watching this, I also love you all as well.
I love you all too, and I'm gonna love you even more if you become a patron. If you go to patreon.com/breaktherules, then we will love you long time. In fact, we got a $50 patron today. Big shout outs to 888. They became a $50 patron yesterday, actually, and I just want to thank them from the bottom of my heart. You get a lot of good stuff, but we're not gonna get into that right now. What we are
that was me.
That was wait, really? Fuck,
yeah,
man.
all your Patreon subscribers are me.
Oh my God, yeah. you are incredible. Well, we are gonna start
Paul Town
with
is
you.
a crypto empire where he funnels funds from e-girls into his pockets.
So that's why I never criticize Paul.
Yes, exactly. So Paul Town, you are new here. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm a schizophrenic felon. Besides that, I post stuff on the internet. I'm just a normal guy.
So being a normal guy, you asked, oh, here we go. Logo is here. Logo is in the house. See, I was right. Logo is here. And everybody give a big shout out to the great Logo Daedalus. He is joining us right now. Logo, is your sound working? I just want to make sure. No response from Logo yet. Hold on. It's connecting right now. Everybody subscribe for Logo. Here we go. Logo, can I hear you?
What's up?
What's up,
Hello?
Logo?
Hey.
There he is.
And I'm gonna ask again because I'm a giant dick douche. I'm gonna ask again, Logo. Can you please retweet the link to this so that your audience? Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. You really memed me on here, man. I don't even remember. I really don't. I didn't know I was doing this today at all, but here I am.
That's because Levin is the Kabbalist. So
That's what he's gonna do.
Exactly, the number magic in my spreadsheet. So
I looked at our DMs. I looked at our DMs and I was just like, I texted you at like 1 a.m. or something this weekend. Like I was probably drunk and just saw a DM and I was just replying to everyone saying like, sure, yeah, or whatever. Because I get a lot and sometimes I'll just send people like one word response.
You know what they say.
So you got me.
I gotcha. I did it. You know what they say? Carpe diem. So anyway, I actually want to start this out with Paul. You made a comment on our last End of History stream talking about Alexander Bard, specifically talking about his view on, let's say, the future of society when it comes to the individual versus the masses. And I find this to be a very interesting discussion. So could you elaborate a little bit on what you may have bones to pick with Alexander's views on?
Yeah, it's not exactly bones to pick. It's more when I was listening to that conversation, that was probably a few months ago, right? That basically it seemed to me like he was coming from a position of almost like a differentiation where, you know, there are people who are kind of conscious actors on the world and they're going to kind of separate from the masses in the sense that the masses are not in for a good time, but that's just kind of their fate. And then whereas everybody else was kind of coming from the point of, oh, we need to like make sure society works for the little people, blah blah blah, that sort of thing. And I'm not saying either one of those are preferable or bad or good. Just that seemed to me like the main point of contention that wasn't really being addressed.
Well, to illustrate it, to illustrate a little bit, Alexander, could you, in short, tell us what you think is going to happen in the near future regarding individual interests versus, let's say, collective interests, for lack of a better word? What would happen to most people who would not be, you know, this individual artist, poet, creator? How are their lives going to change in the next several years versus the lives they've been living in modernity? And the lives they've been living before modernity. I can't even say that word.
Okay, so Nietzsche complained about the fact the vast majority of people have a slave morality, a slave mentality. So he hated the mass. But that's where most people are comfortable. The problem is they're comfortable with tribal. And if I was talking to polar bears, I would preach individualism because they're solitary animals who only fucking breed and even eat their own children, and they're on their own their entire lives. So, but of course, you do that in Greenland. You'd be shamanic, wouldn't you? All of you, right? So, human beings are not. Human beings are literally tribal, and that's why I'm opposed to both individualism and I'm opposed to collectivism. And I think that dichotomy is wrong. It's just not human. The problem is one of scale, and ever since civilization started, the problem has been that tribal is the only thing we're comfortable with. Okay, if we go to any larger scale than that, we go towards eventually forms like nation and empire and things like that. All the larger forms we have to make an effort to fit into. And because we're not loyal to the larger scales, we also have crime and all other kinds of things that we then go into, we get into those things. And then histories try to deal with this, and civilizations then either said that you have to operate within a certain state and you have to follow what the state dictates. And then you put one individual at the top, you call him a dictator, and everybody else has to follow him. Xi Jinping's China is a perfect example of that.
Well, we're going to get into China with logo a little bit later. Just
Okay. But it works. It's not that it doesn't. It just won't work that long, but it will work for quite a while. So we have dictatorships and we have those systems, and then we have the smaller systems. And what I've argued all along is that the best two models I know for empire is Zoroastrianism and Persian Empire 2,200 years worked. And the US Constitution is built on the Persian Empire, if you didn't know that, with the splitting of power and all that, because that's why it's maintained over a long period of time. When it comes to nationhood, I think the Jews did that better than anybody else. The Jewish nation is really the only nation state that also managed to be a religion at the same time. So you can learn from Judaism and Zoroastrianism if you want to learn the forms of nation, empire, and they're intertwined. They were co-created, by the way, which is interesting. We have not really succeeded in anything larger than tribe besides those two experiments ever. And everything else we've done is at best Confucianism in China. It lasts for about a generation, and then it implodes and falls apart anyway. So we end up with a false dichotomy of collective and individual. Now, what is happening right now is we're in the middle of a paradigm shift. Okay, at a paradigm shift, people with shamanoid personalities, that's about 4% of the population. About as many as the androgynous, which is another 4% of the population. Together, they constitute 8% of the population. All the fun people, all the rock stars and disco stars or whatever, are among those 8%. The other 92% of the human population are boring. They're called heterosexual men and women, okay? But the shamanoid characters are the only ones that are truly individual because they have to leave the tribe and they go out in the wilderness and the forest and live as hermits and weirdos or whatever. And you only basically bring them in every 7th year when everything else falls apart. And you bring them in for art, you bring them in for spirituality, you bring them in for the drugs, you bring them in for anything that is a slightly bit extraordinary in your life. You want to spice it up. And that's what they do. So they have to be individuals. But the problem is when the traditional sort of, the way you would run a larger scale society, when that falls apart, the shamanic trait becomes the idol. So after Hitler and Stalin made a mockery of a phallus, because they were fake phalluses in 1945, we started looking for the shamanic as a new ideal. So we started looking for rock stars and other people who killed themselves with the young as ideals for us as humanity. And that's why the shamanoid character suddenly was put on this pillar. Like that was the ideal we should live accordingly. Well, we're probably a shamanoid majority in this discussion right now. We're not representative of the human population. Nietzsche would love us, but he would hate the rest out there or something like that. So the problem is this, what did the shamanoids do at this time is not so much that they're individual, they're just basically shamanoid, but they're the only ones who experiment enough for the paradigm shift to actually create the future prior to anybody else. And this is what we call exodology. So they're the ones who walk around, say in America today, say America's Egypt, they walk around in Egypt and they basically put crosses on the few doors of the people who are actually ready to go to the promised land the next day, like who are ready to go into the future, to really go into digital completely. And they mark those doors. And of course, it's a tiny minority, but it's the only thing we can do that could possibly happen, which is why I'm Nietzsche. That some people could get together, become the chosen ones, walk into the future, make an exodus out of contemporary society, and leave the masses behind them. And that's why it takes a sort of aristocratic ideal to pursue the exodology and do the exodus. And the people who do that will, to the majority extent, be shamanoid, but they will not be representative of everybody else. That's I'm not a socialist.
I would love everybody.
I don't think, if I could interject, I mean, I don't see why being a shamanoid or whatever you called it requires you to be into like butt sex. Like, I don't see why you can't fuck chicks and be a shaman, to be honest. Like,
oh, they fuck everything. Okay, shamans fuck everything that moves as long as there's a breath. Yeah.
I think this is ridiculous. I mean,
already.
I think it's more the openness to new experiences and that sort of thing.
Okay, I'm pretty open to experiences, but I got a pretty closed butthole, put it that way.
Yeah, well, then you're not really open to experiences.
We believe you. We believe.
Okay, you're the non-shaman among us, Joel. Clearly, butthole is just a butthole. Anything is an asset. Anything is material for.
Well, we live in according to Daedalus, we live in a veritable field of anuses, which are penetrative of different experience. Never mind. I'm not gonna.
But I
that
think
was I forget which text where he said field of anuses. I think it was.
But I think what Paul was aiming for in the last discussion on Twitter was that I think Paul, you feel kind of a shame about what is going to happen with most people, with the masses. What is going to be their fate in this sense? But first, I want to make sure, does everybody agree with that? Like, Logo, do you agree with what Alexander Bard talked about right now regarding what's going to happen to most people and what's going to happen with these shamans, as he was phrasing it?
I don't know. I don't know what the future holds. I can't really predict exactly what's going to happen or what contingencies may conspire. But it's certainly. I mean, you know, I certainly believe that this is what this man believes. Like, this is it's certainly a like mythology. Like the question really, you're saying like there's all these like large operative pronouns, but like this is just like pure ideology. Like, we didn't decide anything. Like, you're talking ultimately about like oh, this embrace of the shamanoid, et cetera, et cetera. This is really just like a consequence of like the 20th century state, like creating like these sorts of culture war movements, as you're saying, right? We need these shamans, these Pied Pipers to bring the children into the digital wholly and entirely, as if like the true like shamanoid or outsider perspective would be like, wouldn't that be more skeptical of the digital world? Why would it be the digital optimist?
No. You're mixing up two things that have nothing to do with each other. Number one, I'm not optimist about digital law. I'm completely neutral historically. I'm just saying it's a new condition. So the paradigm shift means power shifts somewhere else. And what you're seeing today with woke and everything is just exactly what happens with the paradigm shift. Woke today are all the fucking losers who are storming into the old institutions as they're dying. So they go into politics, they go into academics, they go to mass media, they go everywhere they can go into the institutions that nobody else wants to be in any longer because they're dying institutions. So in the dying institutions, that's where you find the Jacobins. They're the woke people are today. They're not winning. Napoleon won over the Jacobins eventually. The same thing will happen now. But what I'm saying here is that shamanoid people are the only people who peacefully communicate between tribes in any tribal world you look at. So you say you live in New Guinea like I have, and you look at the semi-nomadic people in New Guinea. Okay, the people who walk between tribes right in the middle of a war in the battlefield that nobody shoots at are the shamanoid people, because they're the only way you peacefully communicate between tribes. That's what shamanoid people do. Androgynous people are very different. They're the link between men and women. They're the link between matriarchy and patriarchy, between inner circuit and outer circuit within the tribe. That's what they're related, but they're totally different. So Joel doesn't have to worry. Shamans are mostly heterosexual, but they probably fuck anything that moves when they're on drugs.
Do you think...
but they're not an ideal that I have. I don't have shamanoid people. I'm explaining, describing how these things work. And it's the same thing if you look at the printing press and how it revolutionized Europe in the 17th century. You had a bunch of people who ran off, used the new technologies, wildly experimented. And of course, they got ahead of everybody else. And finally, we get to the 19th century and mass education and large factories that need manufacturing power. That's when you start to mass educate people and teach everybody to read and write and count and become good citizens in their nation states or whatever. But these things go through these periods. It's always the most experimental to jump onto new technology first, and that's why they gain from it first. But they could also obviously fail. But I'm not defending them, and the shamanoids are not going to lead the children of the future into the future. That's not how it works.
But do you think
shamanoids are going to lead shamanoids? Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. But I think maybe to comment upon what Logo's point, do you think that in some ways digital communications and technology has really, shall we say, imploded the subject in the sense of a sort of fibrous being that we all are now, that our subjectivity is now extrapolated across an information network. And in that sense, a lot of those sort of experiences that were unique to a shamanoid personality, now it seems that a lot of people are trying to seek that same, what would you say, process of recognition throughout this simulated hyper-real environment that we all find ourselves in. And I think that the problem is that the vast majority of people, perhaps, they can't cope with a lot of this information and the sense of the self, qua self becoming just information. I think, like, to most people, we truly haven't contemplated what that means for the vast majority of people. But of course, the problem is our values in society, which is really at the end of the day just like either utilitarianism or egalitarianism. They preach that everyone should have access to this because for reasons, right? Everyone should have these sort of experiences which bracket our own traditional sense of subjectivity. But that being said, it's like that's terrifying in a lot of ways. It's like we're monkeys playing with nuclear arms. Who knows? Nuclear.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But we're living right now in a supernova stage of the atomized self. The atomized self will not be the winner of digital at all. We haven't even understood digital yet. We're not doing it. Some people are spontaneously doing the right things, and we will observe that in hindsight. But most people are just doing all the wrong things. For example, influencers. Influencers are a perfect example of the sort of hyper-narcissism idiocy you would have at the end of a paradigm. And that's why it explodes. So they go online, and as soon as they start selling things they don't really believe in, any 18-year-old today calls them a whore. It's an influencer whore, and then they're dead. So that's not going to work. Actually, digital will kill advertising. We will in the future regard advertising as the ultimate mental rape of humanity. The abolition of advertising in the 2020s will look a lot like the abolition of slavery due to us 100 years later, because we will realize that we never asked for the ads to begin with. And when we got the algorithms and they finally started to work to our favor, ads is what we hated the most.
Where's this great anti-ad movement? Like, it sounds great. Where's it happening? Like, who's going to get this done?
It's called the spam box, and everybody does it every day. You throw it in the spam box. You hate advertising. We all do it. We're all part of it. We're just not aware of it.
Oh, you just mean that we have ad block, like some people have ad
block. Yes, ad blockers are a fantastic instrument for people
But advertising will still be illegal.
Rape, right?
It'll still be a legal industry, so that means that, like, when you're driving on the highways, you'll still see. I mean, you can look away from the billboards too, but are we getting rid of advertising?
Nobody looks at them any longer.
And perhaps
ads don't work. Ads don't work. That's why they're desperate.
All right, this is like the main thing that I disagree with you on.
That's why corporations spend more and more and more on advertising, because it doesn't work. And what is woke? Where does woke come from? It's a fucking desperate last attempt from the advertising and marketing industry to get to our eyes and our ears.
But we hate it. What we were. But
is it unsuccessful though? Like, I don't believe
it is. It is. It's
totally successful.
I've worked in stuff that's related to like big data and that sort of stuff, and it is. Advertising is generally, it's one of those things where it's like you spend more and more, and you're not really sure what works, what doesn't work. There's some efficacy to it, but it's not really. It's very low. It's mostly just marketing hype.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
know
you have your pay
statistically-
to sell, right? You have your
I
like
know
pay to sell.
statistically. Am I
Go ahead, John.
Go for it.
audible?
Go for it.
So I know statistically, like for Twitter, if you look, like the advertisements are like 0.01% successful, but Twitter advertisements are kind of shitty. I think, unfortunately, and I know it was like a meme term from like 2013, but native advertising I think is extremely successful. And that's like really does work. I mean, where you have people who will shill
Influencers.
like products, and well, yeah, but it's even influencing. I think like it is influencing and influencers, but
Yeah, but it's all underclass. Forgetting my point there. It's all underclass. Nobody in the upper class any longer accepts ads in any form whatsoever. And a Finnish study last year showed, the YouTube ads, like you can get rid of them in a few seconds and you press skip the ad. Okay. A Finnish study showed last year that 992 times out of 1,000 people will press the button right away because they hate the ad. Now, if the advertising industry haven't understood yet that they're the fucking mental rapists of history and we will hate them in hindsight, they're so stupid.
I agree with you, but it's not like advertising is going to go away. What's going to happen
No,
is
but
it becomes more and more native.
For the underclass, because all of us who can't afford it will pay to get rid of the shit.
I think
So if you will not reach the people in power.
The important, but wait. The most important thing in this is that it's all dependent on consumer spending. So like, advertising is part of like directing consumer spending. It's not like the success of advertising will be on the success of an expansion or a subtraction of individual consumer spending. I would say probably consumer spending, I mean, I don't know, it's probably just flatlining because we're forcing things in economically in a situation where there's people are just being pushed towards spending even while they're making less money because we need to maintain consumer spending to stimulate the economy.
But I think that
but that's nothing to do with advertising. That's everything to do today with algorithms. Okay, I start a restaurant, say here in central Stockholm where I live. All I need to do is to get 5 guests to the restaurant the first night when I open and give them an absolutely superb experience. And the next day I have 5.0 on Google Maps my restaurant and I have a queue outside. No advertising is involved in that process.
That's not how it works, though.
Communicated process today, you skip the advertising right away and you spend everything on the quality of what you do, because everything from now on will be about quality.
I think I agree with what you're saying. I just consider that that's just part of advertising.
Yeah, I agree.
No.
I agree. Well, Logo, if you want to make a point, then I'll.
Yeah. Well, that's not like how do you get those first 5 people in there, right? Like they'd be your friends or whatever. So you assume and like
no advertising.
Well, then they'd be ostensibly right, like talking about it, word of mouth, posting about it as like influencers, like kind of.
That's not advertising. Form, that right? is That's authentic communication.
Okay. Well, okay, so then now we're just saying that we'll no longer have
advertising. Is something you spend money on.
Wait,
you have an advertising department.
Advertisers,
in your company,
I know.
Marketing department. You don't do marketing or advertising here.
Suddenly, all the corporations are going to be doing authentic communication with us. I think that's why they're all supporting Black Lives Matter. And
that is what I was.
No, that's nothing authentic about that at all. That's precisely my point. It's fake communication.
But
they're friends.
Okay, hold
they're
on.
friends.
Gio,
they're all friends.
You wanted to say something, but before that,
I think
there was a mention of the blood on the houses during the Exodus. So what that reminds me of with the blood on the houses in Exodus are all the BLM signs and all the graffiti being done.
Crisis averted in Minnesota. They're all going. Oof,
but in a way that is
probably not. They're probably still gonna find them.
But in a way, that is the blood on the walls here, and that is driven out of fear. Mostly, I think. So the question is like, where do we go from here as far as that kind of advertising?
So, in the case of like the blood and that sort of thing, and advertising in general, I think the distinction that's not really being noticed is that I think Bard is referencing advertising in an exploitative sense. Not the natural advertising that comes from a genuinely good product, and that like word of mouth and communication, like you said, that's like, it's a natural advertising. It's not like synthetic, like forced. It's not basically a top down, like,
it's marketing.
It's marketing. No, but the thing is, so if I like if I make something that's very quality, like a very quality product,
like
and I
is
sell
the
it to,
sequence.
yeah, exactly.
Like it is the
Yeah.
sequence.
If I
Go
make
and buy
that,
it is the sequence.
if I if 10 people buy it, they like it a lot.
I liked it a lot.
They advertise to other people. I don't think Bard doesn't consider that advertising, whereas you guys would consider that
Nobody
advertising.
does. Oh,
Yeah.
and I'm in
Yeah, I think that's the
main the wrong
main
way.
yeah,
It's
that's
not used
that's the,
that way.
yeah. So I think he's
so
yeah,
we're
I think that's the
we're not gonna
difference
have
in
ads, but we'll
advertising
still have
perspective.
marketing.
Yeah, well,
We'll
I
still
want to
have
market
marketing.
Logo's book over here, Ampersand.
Yeah,
I have the link
I
to
was
it.
grabbing
over
for
here.
Let's
it,
market. Let's start
actually.
We should
advertising
just-
and
hey,
marketing.
This is like
It's
the
so, by the way,
ultimate
buy
American
digital
This is extremely-
Libido.
this is
just
Digital
pure
Libido.
product placement.
I want
24/7.
I want everyone here to know this is authentic communication. We're not
Yeah,
advertising.
but what
or
I'm
shilling
saying is,
for
I think
ourselves.
that's like at the core of the disagreement is that you're seeing natural communication as
Okay,
marketing and advertising, and it's
Alexander.
it's both. It can be
Hold on.
both at the same time.
Does Alex think that there will no longer be money spent by corporations in order to direct people towards the products that they have or the services that they have in a way that they're not changing the development or aspects of the products, but rather just like you know what, like I know I'm
Geo.
like I like is because that's what Google does. Like yes, it's algorithmic, but like also you can spend money on sponsored posts and it will push you higher up in the algorithm, right? Why is it
No. If Google would actually have the ads inside the algorithm, they would have ads. It would kill them. That's why it's exactly why you can create better and better algorithms.
Well,
you can beat Google at this game.
This
It's all
goes.
about the algorithm.
Well,
the
I just want to
algorithm
take a
is
moment. I
honest,
just want to take a moment here to thank Mike Lindell and the My Pillow.
Yeah.
They're fantastic support of breaking the rules.
The thing about Google.
The thing about ExpressVPN is that it's the best VPN service.
The thing about Google's answer is not really advertising; it's really pay to play to get.
But the thing about advertising, if advertising is the biggest problem you have, like you're going pretty good. Like life's pretty sweet. Like if there's a few brand names plastered on a wall somewhere, I don't really give a shit.
No, because
Joel, you're missing my point entirely. The problem is that no of the old
really.
power
I mean, I use
institutions-
ad blocker. I mean,
listen, can I explain? None of the
Pretty
old
annoying,
power
I
institutions
guess.
can communicate any longer in any other way that isn't authentic. So that's exactly what woke capitalism will go down in flames. It's doomed to fail. Coinbase are so fucking smart. Brian Armstrong banned politics at Coinbase a year ago. That was so fucking prophetic. Every damn technologist I know today wants to work for Coinbase. Not because of crypto, because it's a workplace where politics is banned. Anybody who's involved in Black Lives Matter, they're gonna regret it deeply because Black Lives Matter bitches are currently buying huge mansions in white neighborhoods in America. It will go down with huge hypocrisy, like Jacobins always have. Why would you get involved in Black Lives Matter?
Pretty sweet mansions, though, right?
This point.
Well, real quick, I just want to say we have $5 Canadian from Dream Radio. Sneed us your super chats right now. Sneed us your super chats. Anyway, Dream Radio says, if attention is more valuable than capital in the new world, then advertising attention is clearly the bottom of the barrel of attention quality. So
well, no, but that's my point. I think maybe to cut in between why the stakes of this conversation, and Marcus, he did mention how I'm an alpha simp. The simp economy is a good example. I think the thing with advertisement, the reason we're talking about it, because when you look at the way in which our subjectivity, like I said, has been transformed by hyperreality, then you can see that advertisement as, say, the 1950s Madison Avenue model, that's going to go by the wayside. That's dead, right? But the advertisement comes about through this sort of systematic infiltration of identity from the corporatocracy itself. So it's not just that, I'm using Black Lives Matter, or in June is going to have the Pride thing and corporations are going to change their logo. It's deeper in the sense that now extreme brand identification goes beyond the products themselves towards the idea that is being marketed to you as consuming your identity. So this is why we're talking about it, because now when we've had this sort of run of the corporatocracy doing whatever it can, and there's virtually no government powerful to stop it, you really don't, the sort of discourses of power have transformed with it. So now people aren't just being marketed a product, they're being marketed a whole identity and lifestyle. And so this is obvious, right? But it becomes murky because yes, advertisement will die, but the death of advertisement, I truly feel, and this is where I disagree with Bart a little bit, I'm skeptical in that the future of advertisement itself, by using identity in such a way, that's going to unleash a hell of hells. I mean, it's already happening where you have, literal rad libs and tankies supporting, like, I don't know, Oatly. Oatly's a good, that's what I wanted to talk about. Oatly is a perfect example. By going after shit posters online, such as our friends, that is, to me, next level brilliant marketing. That's better than that bullshit they did where Oatly put the fucking ironic ads on the streets of Malmo and London and so forth. What they did by going after the top shit posters on the dissident right, that was amazing marketing right there. People that will strongly identify with sort of the progressive worldview, they're going to go out and drink the oat seed rape oil sludge because they fucking argued with Zero HP Lovecraft and Logo Daedalus online. So it's like,
did Oatly at me? I gotta look this up. Did this happen?
Was it you or I think they?
I don't think.
Hold
it was
on,
me.
this
Yeah,
is like inside baseball stuff.
Yeah.
Who is Oatly? Just so we're all on the same
Oatly
page.
is this
Oatly's a
UK
Swedish company. I know the guys. I'm drinking Oatly right here in my tea. So there you
Oh
go.
my God.
Because it actually tastes good.
Here it is, marketing, folks.
Yeah. Okay.
By the way,
No,
$1 for
Wait,
fight or
wait.
flight. $1
Wait,
fight or
wait.
flight.
But I'll give you another example.
It's
here.
authentically good. I enjoy the
I'll
authentic
give you another
taste
example of
Oatly.
the problems the corporations are running into today. Okay, take
What's Oatly, by the way? I
H&M
don't
in
even know what it
China.
is.
We just got $100
Take
super
H&M
chat
in
from
China. You know H&M, right? H&M. And H&M in China, and they decided they were too posh to use cotton from East Turkestan, or Xinjiang is called in China, because of the Uyghurs, right, who were forced to work in concentration
The
camps. with the
Uyghurs?
cotton.
Oh boy.
Okay, so the Chinese decided to go after them. What the Chinese did was that they employed about 2 million youngsters in China and paid them to be bullies. And they had then started a campaign in Asia against H&M, in all of Asia, where they basically just put a poster in there with, Uyghurs picking cotton in East Turkestan. It looks wonderful and lovely, perfect picture, probably Xi Jinping at the corner or something. And then the other picture next to it is just one of H&M's own t-shirt factories in Bangladesh where everything looks horrible. And they're killing H&M. H&M are going to pull out of 20 countries dead because they decided to go woke, and now they're dead. Okay, you can't do woke capitalism. It will not work. And it will exactly, because it will go up against the fact that it's fundamentally fake. It's nothing to do with the product any longer, nothing to do with what you're doing. And it's trying to create a passion or a lifestyle or some kind of a sense. The advertisers are so desperate these days, they measure just the fact that we react at all. That's seen as a positive.
The thing
Like,
about
if you
this
react
whole
negatively, it's also-
subject,
Can we
maybe
identify?
I'm a cynical asshole, but do most people really give a shit about any of this? Like, don't you just buy stuff because you want it?
Joe, well, fuck yourself. Go and fuck yourself and get off. I mean, get offline. You're adding nothing to
I
this
advertise the stream so hard. I fucking
You're
Alex
the party
paintings.
pooper.
Oh my God.
You don't
I'm
open your asshole. You're nothing intelligent to say. You just.
I think
Yeah, there's no
I'm
room
going
for
to tell you
prejudice
stuff to
for
say,
that.
but this is just a
Slide,
boring subject. Like the
Well,
whole, like we've been talking about advertising.
Give us a
for like
better
I
an
think-
one
hour.
then.
We'll
Well, I
move
think-
Give us a
on.
better
Let's-
topic then.
No, I think
Give us something constructive for
we
God's
could
sake.
tie it back to the beginning with
No.
with
I actually
with
want- I want
advertising.
someone
Joel
who's
to do
more
this.
cynical
With-
than
with-
I
with
want Joel
advertising-
to do this just like they have, just like the comedians invite the hecklers on stage and say, "Now you do stand up." Joel, next subject, your choice.
All right.
I mean, around the realm.
Well,
of
what is okay? So Lev,
Yeah.
you had
No, fuck me.
You always have
Fuck
a plan.
Don't worry about me.
Individualism
No, let's give
versus.
Joel. No,
Yeah,
let's give
Joel.
Joel a
Yeah.
fucking.
Okay.
Yeah.
You bring us the subject.
Yeah,
I don't give a
subscribe.
shit about anything.
Subscribe. Okay.
No, we want pornography. Give us pornography. Here you go.
Give us Barabbas.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
I guess
present
like
yourself on
individualism versus the masses. I don't really know what that even means. I guess
Yeah, it's kind of bad. That doesn't make sense either. I agree. I don't know what that means.
In the context that I was saying it when I was replying a few months ago, with essentially that there's a dichotomy. I think there's a dimorphism, a psychic dimorphism, essentially, of like, and Bard would say in the shamanic sense, but I would say more in the sense that there are some people who are conscious, some people who are not conscious, and I think up until very recently, up until the internet and like abstraction of resources, that basically the collective default, which is like most people who aren't really creative, they're not really like, they don't go out of their way to do anything. They're kind of just reactive. They kind of had an upper hand because they could fit into like a pro-social community, local context. Whereas now with the internet and that sort of thing, that's almost like a net negative because there's so many inputs and so much stimulus and so many narratives that are pretty much pushed on everybody that the only people who really benefit are the people who are naturally as Barb would say, like shamanic, where they're not really influenced by that sort of thing.
Yeah, like the rise of the creative class.
It's not even creative class. It's more. I mean,
it's just kind of what it's called to a degree, right? Like these are the people who would be, we're basically just saying there's the Morlocks and the fucking Eloi here. We can call them shamans or whatever, but what this really is just the dimorphism, like in our time, like in capitalism, where like, yeah, if you can create like a new app or a new widget, or you can sell your NFTs, then you're getting selected into like the rocket ship to fucking Mars, right? With Elon Musk.
It's more that if you can create digital or I would say psychic, basically products or that sort of thing, you can, because those can be reproduced and those can be distributed geographically, not related to localism. You can basically, you're essentially getting paid at a much higher rate than somebody who's doing like a blue collar job, somebody who's doing like a localized context. So essentially, with like the invention of the internet and that sort of thing, with the invention of like the printing press and the radio and that sort of stuff, to a lesser scale, just accelerating. Essentially, the incentives have flipped from the people who are the kind of the natural outsiders from being natural outsiders. So they're like 1 to 4% of the population or whatever. And now it's essentially the ecosystem has them as basically the dominant force.
Yeah, I mean, it's also
you
kind
almost
of
have to have a schizoaffective personality in some ways.
It's because you're native. It's like digital natives, right? Like if you're like an artist or whatever, you're conscious of the creative performance of yourself, like through these mediums, and like you're interested in like manipulating media, or you can see media as media, like something that is made and constructed by people for like their own effects. That's not like how most people experience media. Like for instance, like you're saying, like, for instance, we all hate advertisements. I think that's pretty normal, because when we look at advertisements, we know like that there was a boardroom, people sitting down. We understand exactly like the creative processes that were probably behind going into that. But the vast majority of people who, when they watch an advertisement, it's like they looked outside their window and like that's just what's there. Like they're not like naturally a part of the process of like the creativity in this sort of sense. Like they don't think of things in that way. So yeah, there is this split because everyone just experienced the world like mediated, like we here are even mediated, but we're like not that off put by this sort of mediated interaction, because we consider like pretty much all sorts of interactions to be like a type of mediation, and there's like these are all domains for performativity, et cetera, et cetera.
But
that's how it's always been. It's not like that for most people, so that's why they go crazy on here.
So essentially the important thing about the individualist versus collectivist kind of dichotomy is that the ecosystem is basically selecting for people who are kind of collective, in a certain sense, that works on a local scale, up until like 20 or so years ago, whereas so you have basically the vast majority fits that archetype, and then you have basically with the internet and with basically everyone's brains being attached basically irregardless to geography, is you basically have the whole ecosystem flips, and so the creatures that were essentially, they could only exist at like a certain very small percentage, like 1 to 4% of the population, now are the dominant creatures. And there has to be, and Bard says it's a paradigm shift. I would say it's more like an evolutionary bottleneck, where it's like, it's essentially the ecosystem has shifted in a very fundamental way that has the human institutions and human societies and structure in which they operate is built up for like the physical economy, where I would say that the psychic economy is dominant now over that.
Well, let me first.
But Paul, we're only the beginning of the paradigm shift. So what you're seeing is signs of that, and always this is a dialectical thing. So you will have reactions, but you will go back to your paradigm, try to save it, and try to find something from it, because you have to completely invent something new, and that takes a lot of time. So I would say the creative class, for example, was invented by Richard Florida as an expression 20 years ago. It hasn't survived. The expressions we use, for example, netocracy is a small new upper class digital elite, where tech is only the beginning of that. It's going to be symbolic netocracy. It's going to be imaginary.
Storytellers is the new one.
For example, Netflix writers is a new one. But that is a small minority who belong to that class. So creative class sounded good because a lot of people want to be creative, but creativity is actually really rare. In most cases, creative work turns out to be just mimicking anyway, because true creators like genuine artists who are truly shamanoid are an ideal. And then you get a lot of people to work in these creative class jobs, which is not really creative at all. It's still just mimicking and things like that. And it's industrial, but on a new scale. So You're absolutely right. But I think this is only the beginning of the development. If you try to look,
Oh yeah,
forward,
definitely. I would agree that
it
it's
really
yeah,
look like
no.
a paradigm shift.
It's like essentially the ecosystem has changed, but the population inside the ecosystem hasn't adjusted yet.
I think
this is just the straight of modernity, though. Like I don't even know. I wouldn't necessarily call this like, if this is a paradigm shift, it's the same paradigm shift that we've been experiencing since like you could have someone like Thomas Nash rise to the national importance in Elizabethan England. Like, you know, that's basically the same sort of thing.
Yeah, but okay, I'll describe what a paradigm is. A paradigm is the fundamental information technology of any given society. If it's a paradigm shift, if it's that dramatic, it means there's a new technology that beats the shit out of all the old technologies in that field. So we are now getting rid of books and records and everything goes digital. That is clearly a paradigm shift, technologically speaking, and it's a technological phenomenon. Then how we adjust that as human beings is that humans are basically the constant in my work all the time. Technology is the only thing that's a variable over time. So that's how we describe a paradigm shift.
But at the same
these
time,
are in a relation though, right? Because the technology changes like our own experience of what being human is.
There's levels of framing and so forth. But I wanted to ask, Joel about the thesis that capital will die. But before that, there's people in the chat that are demanding that Paul Town, what is your spiciest hot take on Moldbug? So I guess you're referring to
he's not a good writer, and he steals his ideas from like Anglos from the 1800s pretty much.
I
mean, his poetry's good though, Paul. You gotta give him
I don't think that either.
I think it's good. I don't know.
But I wanted to also ask Logo, when you talked about how there is a sort of conscious effort by capital. Now, I'm of the opinion that it's probably easier just to say that capital is sentient somewhat. I mean, it's like, you know, that's like the least complicated explanation of it. But I wanted to ask you how you go back to this idea that what we're experiencing in modernity is this weaponization of like what you call like culture war bullshit. Do you feel that in some ways the culture war, the culture kampf, you're skeptical of it? Okay, outline why you're skeptical of it, but also do you think that it's just part of a sort of a dialectic, if you will, that the reason we're warring over cultural issues is because we have become either robbed of our sort of traditional sources of identity, but also that the capital is going to sort of push us through the thresher either way. So what do you explain, if you will, like what you mean by culture war being bullshit, and people that focus on it, they're just like, I don't know, being pawns or something. They're like masturbating over it.
So like for like the sort of like liberal form of empire that we exist within, like it's all about like it gets complicated because like really the America we live in is just a creation of like of World War II. Like none of what we experience as like being like normal American things to assume, like even our own like self-conception isn't the same. The self-conception of America before World War II is that we were like a rapist gangster country full of like rapacious capitalists who, you know, this was our own self-conception even at the time. That's like pretty much everyone was more like woke in that sense before World War I and World War II. So what you have like with like the culture war theatrics, right? This sort of stuff it's really more like just training. It's like people warring over like education. That's like why we are always arguing about like what's going on in schools and like, you know, or what's going on in libraries. And this type of education is just like in the liberal form. It's just the training of your political sentimentality to a basic degree. Like it's just about like who you're imagining, like, you know, like you've observed this event. And like, how are you supposed to react like as an audience to this thing that has been performed like before you? So that's why everything's like very much like it's like presentation is like very important of all these sorts of events. Like, you know, we're going through this. Yeah, exactly. So it turns like already everything into this like art piece to a degree, but it's not like, but the mythology is that we're all contributing to this art piece because we're all observing it. But it's actually just like a very strong industry. Like there's a coordinated industry. It's a massive industry. It's a very professionalized industry with tons of people working on it all the time. It's absurd to call it like a conspiracy. It's like a business. Like this is like, as we're saying, look, with marketing, advertising, but this works the same when we're talking about news, because like it's not any piece of information like, you know, like, this bomb went off in this place will be spun in the same way that a fucking like thing of Oatly will be. Like it's part of the content, but everything is about how things are framed. Like the content, like this idea that we'll eventually get to like just a pure authenticity of communication, I just think is absurd. like between human beings, like individuals, even, or corporate. Like there's always these levels of deception involved.
Well, you had this controversial tweet about how I think you and Joel got into this because of it. How you, like that one episode of Star Trek where it was the civilization that had, I forget the exact term, where they referenced to something that was their communication. So Begron, Kirk did this, right? So then you were like on the internet, memeified communication similar in that you said it's like based, cringe, cuck, bugman. Like it's like these multisyllabic words that people instantly recognize the meaning, but it's like you just type it.
The meaning is a picture, though. The meaning is a picture, right? Like people just be like, "Ooh, cringe" or whatever, you know, or like this was like even like rage. The whole rage face cosmology hasn't really changed that much, but but like, you know, people are communicating with emojis now. It's the same way. Like a lot of words are just like emojis. Like people say "lol" or like "lol" out loud in real life now. It has like its own uses besides like actually laughing, because you don't actually laugh every time you say LOL. You know, we're always deceiving each other.
Is it similar to hieroglyphics? Would you say it's similar to Egyptian hieroglyphics?
Perhaps. I mean, hieroglyphics were like a sort of proto-phonetic form. That's like one of like our concept of hieroglyphics, though. It's closer to our concept of how hieroglyphics worked before we figured out how hieroglyphics worked. But yeah, I could say it's definitely like that sort of ideal. Like the hieroglyph became a sort of ideal of like this hyper compressed form of communication with just like pictures and stuff. But like it turns out that like a lot of the pictures were just standing for like the phonetic sound of that word and things like this. Like when we actually like were able to decipher hieroglyphs and start reading Egyptian.
So I wonder if
I mean, if you look at the history of language, I might bring like written language, like. Basically, letters were originally hieroglyphics or like some kind of pictorial representation. And then basically what happened is they were trying to take those pictorial representations across to someone who spoke a different language. So like you would have like a circle that referenced the sun. And then, so then like say when I speak English, I say sun, but then like the sound sun in like some other language means something completely different, but it's the same phonetic sound. And so they abstracted the sound to the picture, and eventually the picture became more and more simple and like morphed into like you can kind of track the genealogy of like the formation of letters.
You can see that with some of the early Chinese ideograms also. Like I think Ezra Pound, I don't know if he's right about this, but I always liked it enough to repeat it. But I think that the symbol for east, it's either east or west. It's like it's like a sun through the trees, like on the horizon.
And it's similar with the I Ching as well. I like doing I Ching sometimes, and it's a similar kind of thing. They have very simple lines that denote it.
And even in China, like this is, and again, I did this because this was part of my fucking master's thesis. In China, they were the first, I think, to discover this sort of communication between the written word and what is the picture and what is the aesthetic image. So, for example, the literati painting, the combination of poetry, calligraphy, and the Sumi ink landscape. To me, that is almost like what we're seeing nowadays. We're seeing this odd sort of rebirth of that similar disposition towards conglomerations of images and words in meme culture. And that's my spicy hot take. And maybe so.
But I don't think this is actually like re-embedding what language kind of combined with art to create like the written word, like speech and art came together to create literacy through this process of abstraction. And now if we like meme culture and so forth are a kind of return, like to kind of re-embed, because obviously like, actual like letters on a page, they don't mean anything unless they're attached to a referent. They have to be located somewhere. But I think I'd like to also like just kind of like take the opportunity to change the pace of this discussion and kind of cycle back to like what we were discussing before about capitalism and creativity. I've been doing a video series on my YouTube channel on Schumpeter's Capitalism, Socialism, and Democracy. I've been reading it, and it's quite interesting how he kind of describes the emergence of capitalism fundamentally. It was within kind of like a Christian Christendom in Europe, where you had all these established institutions, familial relations, religious relations, and so forth during early capitalism. And so like the bourgeois class and like the kind of logic of capitalism working itself out was kind of embedded in this like more traditional political order that kind of maintained social stability, maintained like the kind of arc narratives that were like kind of the paradigm, so to speak, that was governing society. But then over time, this class wanted more and more political power, and so it kind of appealed to rationalizations, like essentially liberalism, to like political science, economics, these kind of secular rationalizations of the role of power, which liquidated all of these traditional institutions and then left kind of capitalism just kind of stranded, subject to itself, where like now we have this totally secularized political science and economics that's self-referential in like the early liberal paradigm. And basically Schumpeter's thesis was that capitalism was destined to kind of blow itself up into socialism because of this, because ultimately it had kind of set up this structure of rationalizing power, which would ultimately be taken over by intellectuals. And so the very structure under which the political, the political power of the bourgeois was like maintained was kind of processed through an intellectual elite that like governed ideological rationalization, whilst at the same time, as technology improves, the process of, there's like a few different things happening. You have like absentee ownership, so you don't have like this individual capitalist running a factory, but instead you have just like a bunch of like absentee owners shifting money around in like some hedge fund that have no knowledge or involvement with the everyday workings of a corporation. You have like massive complexifications and a kind of a massive socialization of the production process, where there's like more and more links in the chain, and it's like there's more and more different corporations, and like even individual large corporations have so many different divisions that are like totally like massively complex, that don't really understand how each other works. And so there's more and more demand for like basically intellectuals to have to come in and provide a language to understand how all these different parts have been increasingly complex. Yeah, exactly.
It's crazy, Joel.
See the emergence of sociology as like the kind of discipline that takes over from economics.
But Joel, that's crazy how Schumpeter said that, because that is exactly, almost to the letter, exactly what generations later Michel Foucault said about the nature of power in terms of how capitalism arose, by basically eroding over time what he would distinction between sovereign power and disciplinary power, which is the newer discourses. Sovereign power is etched in blood. It's based in tribal relations.
I got something for you, Gio. It's even better, because John Locke compares the power of public censure, right? The power of public censure, like people's sentiments being stirred up against someone, to a power greater than that of God and the state. And this is in like the introduction to the later editions of the Inquiry Concerning Human Reason. So this is like if you were looking at the time period where this whole like sentimental industrial, like we're talking about woke capital, it's always been woke capital. It's always been also a simultaneous product of training your sentimentality.
Right.
That's like
what
I like Alexander Bard's eyes wandering there. Alexander, what do you think of what Joel said? First off,
I love this discussion. I don't mind being in audience for a while. I think it's fantastic.
No, but I am curious. Do you agree with what Joel was talking about in his view of how this whole thing worked out?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I'm adding attentionalism to capitalism, and I don't think the way to communism goes through socialism anyway, because socialism fails. But I'm certainly interested in hearing what Joel has to say. It's almost as interesting as Joel in a pornographic movie. So totally for it. I'm embracing it entirely.
Oh my God.
I don't know. Can you guys see the chat here? With Joel's, can I post a picture in here?
You can if you become a just post something in the sushi bar. Post something in the sushi bar. I'm gonna upgrade you to a citizen.
God.
By the way,
all right, one second, let me find
Patreon.com. This is gonna be the plug right now, right here. Patreon.com/breaktherules. We just got a new $50 patron. You guys better subscribe and better become patrons today. You're gonna get a lot of goodies. You're gonna get beautiful wooden magnets. You're gonna get Geo's print, and you're also gonna get to post in btr-chat. You could post images and stuff, which is a right, not a privilege, because I don't want people posting porn. But anyways,
unless it's porn of Joel, but oh God, I'm sorry, Joel.
There's that smile. There's that smile.
You just had to tease it out of him. So I think it's because sovereign power is the sort of traditional models of power over the sovereign. Okay, so the discourses that arose from disciplinary power, that is essentially what you would say the rule of experts. That becomes the specialization, that becomes sort of, even in Foucault even says the family itself is sort of created out of disciplinary power, but it's a sovereign power within a structure of disciplinary power, because the family itself is sovereign. It's related to a much older model of the family, but the modern bourgeois family is subject to disciplinary power. It creates citizens for a disciplinary action. Kids go to school, the mother sends them off to the psychiatrist and gives them pills, and those discourses were created over time because the engine of capital itself transformed in such a way as to allow for essentially this immense amount of expertism, credentialism, specialization. And now what we are left totally without sovereign authority, sovereign power. We have no more traditional sources of power. We have just disciplinary power. Then that goes into what Deleuze called the societies of control, where now the subject is total information that is just sorted and slotted out, and it's not even a matter of biopower anymore. Biopower, that's over. It's the societies of control.
I kind of reject this a little bit. I pick up on, I think, what Logo was kind of getting at, which I think I would be more inclined to agree with, which is this idea that capitalism is only now sentimental. Like, as if capitalism wasn't sentimental. Like, what the fuck do you think liberal ideology is? It's all this sentiment, democracy, human rights, like
fraternity,
freedom.
equality.
Yeah. The whole Cold War was fought on this like sentimental base. Or it wasn't fought on a sentimental basis, but it was kind of rationalized on a sentimental basis. I like this word rationalized better.
Well, the thing is, no, it wasn't rationalized on that basis by the people who are actually responsible for getting us into those wars.
I mean,
they rationalized it very differently, and they specifically were they were like, we need to hire people to fucking like stir people's sentiments to like agree that with going along with all of this.
Right.
But that wasn't like the reasons why we went on all of these things are total fictions. They're literal fictions that like we like train our sentiments.
But I'm not saying they're not fictions. I'm talking about
But here's the thing.
I use the word rationalization in a kind of like critical sense. Like, you would use it to determine like, oh, you do something.
Oh no,
wrong.
I was more criticizing like the way, like who you were describing as the agent in this like sort of sentence here, right? Because like there are people who are responsible for getting us into World War II. Like they have names, like you can look up like their like what organizations they were coordinating with, like and like their own private correspondences about wanting to like have a war like this so that they could plan the peace far in advance of any of this happening. So that's what I'm saying more is like we didn't do anything, right? The public is like just like they were just like fucking psyoped into going along with it. I mean, this shouldn't be surprising to us,
but
Logo, our entire lifetime.
But then to further
real quick. I just want to keep in mind here who we are, where we're living right now versus where a lot of the people who were living under actual Soviet rule were. And it would be interesting to actually bring some of those people in, or teleport you, Logo, back to where they were and have you have a conversation with them about this whole
the Gulag within like 12
about this
hours.
whole Cold War thing is just bullshit being set up by these puppet masters. They'd be, you know what, fuck it, I don't care if it is set up by some puppet masters. What I care about is that we're not going to have secret police who are going to be coming into my apartment.
Well, we had that in America the whole time too. So, and if you told it would have been harder for people, it
Relative
would have been harder for
Oh my
people
God,
here.
please
Wait,
do not
let
get
me
into
finish.
this right now.
Let me finish.
Oh my God.
Let me finish it.
No,
It would have been harder.
The wife beating again.
Actually, it would have been so much harder for you to explain to someone in 1950s, 1960s America what COINTELPRO was than to tell a Soviet citizen that there were secret police who were abducting people.
Yeah,
that wasn't a secret in the Soviet Union.
Everyone
knew that
was. Who cares? That's not the point. The point is that people,
really quickly.
People.
I think the point he's making though is that like America sucks too. It's a lot better at propaganda.
The point is that none of us here have actually lived in there, and it's very interesting to get all these
we have a gulag here. It's our prison system. We have a massive prison system, the largest prison system, larger than it was per capita number of prisoners than the Soviet Union ever had right now. So yeah, you can go meet people who are subject to the American gulag system.
For reading the wrong book, right? Like a prison for doing shit. I understand that when it comes to drugs...
Well, you could lose your job for reading the wrong book, Lev. But anyways...
Society's the real prison at this point.
Exactly. We live in it. Again, this is societies of control. So to add to Joel's point, you are right. Because later on, Giorgio Agamben then comes and criticizes Foucault, saying that no, these relations of power, sovereign power and disciplinary power, they were always there. They were there since ancient times. This is, again, like Adorno saying that, yes, instrumental rationality, it was always there. It was when Odysseus told the Cyclops, he said, he poked his eye. He was like, who poked your eye out? I'm nobody. Then he goes back to the Titans, and they're like, who poked your fucking eye out? Nobody. Oh, my God, nobody.
Nobody,
so they thought he was Nobody TM, exactly. So
yeah, but Gio, the point
they were
is
always there in those relations.
Yeah, everything is always there in that sense. But this is about proportions. This is about what dominates society.
Yes,
so that
you're
can
right.
shift enormously.
Yes.
And when we talk about these paradigms, everything was always there. Somebody always wrote, or at least wrote the last 10,000 years. It doesn't mean they wrote the same way we write today, where like 8 billion people are online all the time. It's radically different because the proportions and the scales have changed. But what I like here, maybe it's Joel's thing though, what I like here is to talk more about the efficiency of this system. Why does it work? And how does it work? And is this collectively subconscious or conscious the way it works? Byung-Chul Han is a good addition to this because he takes on the control society even more radically than Deleuze did. And he basically says that now we're in the 2010s when he wrote his books, the Korean philosopher, Byung-Chul Han. And he says that if violence is assumed to be constant, and why not? Because we assume sexuality is a constant in a society. And if violence isn't seen the way it was before, it's probably internalized and moved inside. And he's arguing basically that the superego is now bigger than ever in the vast majority of people who live in the Western world. So that the superego is now so over controlling in us that the ego is more or less done. Right. And that probably rhymes with this idea that individualism is no longer there. It's a form of compressed narcissism that we're dealing with, a hyper-narcissism we're dealing with, because we're under so much pressure from the superego without knowing it. Nobody's told us, unless you look at a guy like
is that the guy? I'm not even saying this as a joke, but is that the guy who I'm not kidding about this, that advocated basically that people should become like effectively retarded in order to deal with the control system?
In psychopolitics, I think so. It's not retarded, but like
he's a Korean who lives in Germany. It's interesting in the sense that he unites East and West, and he really does. It's like he's a Korean Seon monk, a Zen monk from Korea, who actually lived in Germany.
Look at Ding Dong in the chat, by the way. Gio will never utter an original idea.
Oh my God, Ding Dong, what is wrong with you?
I have plenty of original ideas.
Yes, and by the way, everybody subscribe right now. If I'm going to keep posting those
never
images.
Original.
I'm going to keep posting these subscribe things so you people subscribe.
But see that argument about, again, I highly recommend everyone going to read Psychopolitics. It's one of the best books ever.
I will second that. That book fucking owns.
And the thing is, the constant fabulation of the self within sort of our capitalist realist paradigm, that in itself is like now, and I know you're going to hate this, Alexander, because you fucking hate Hart Negri, but we are becoming singularities where over the top of us, like, you know what a singularity, all the energy collapses within this one mono point of a black hole singularity. I'm not exactly a physicist, but basically all of this information converges into a singular point, and now the self has become exploded over all of these different fields and all of these different quatrains. And so when it comes to like this individualism that, you know, the Scottish Enlightenment was talking about, that's dead. That's gone. That's, you know, people that talk about the individual like the fucking James Lindsay's of the world, I'm sorry, they don't know what they're talking about, because that paradigm is over, done with. We're in the age of singularity. Although it's what you do with that information that is the question, though, because now if we fully realize that, a lot of people are going crazy. They're, you know, reading Deleuze and taking HRT and doing stuff like that. So it's like, what are we doing with ourselves now that we've imploded the self?
I want to bring something in here. So we had a comment from Alexandra Plotnik on the previous stream. She talked about when she went to Denmark, she saw a lot of these happy young couples with kids in the cradles everywhere. Like, there were a lot of kids that were being had in Denmark, according to her, and that is an example of, let's say, a society that has a good amount of liberalism in it. So this idea that liberalism would always lead to socialism or whatever, like, I am very skeptical of that, just because the same thing you could say liberalism will always lead to authoritarianism, or liberalism will always lead to Nazism.
I think that's related to basically the initial conditions of the people there.
Sure.
I think I could be wrong, but from my impression, I'm an American, but my impression is that Danes are more insular, and they don't take well to outsiders as much as other, you know, people in that area of the world.
Yeah,
I could be wrong.
They also have much more of like a healthier like social services sector. Like their healthcare system is like
that's
not even, you can't even compare it. You can't even compare it to ours.
But
they're also one of the countries.
I live in Sweden, and it's very similar to Denmark in this sense. But we have large governments. We do. We have high taxation, large governments, but we also have rampant capitalism and a lot of tech and things like that. So I think the Scandinavia is kind of the model China's looking at, but they'd like to have a dictator at the top because they think they're too big to afford to have sort of the evolution of power between different groups of power. So you don't have just one tiny phalanx at the top, because the communists.
Well, someone in the chats
But
asked
they
if
like to
Z was.
unify a strong state, high taxation, that then promises to put out a lot of workers to that creative class. It feeds the system, and that's how Scandinavia works.
Oh,
But then
Alexander,
someone
real
asked
quick.
Yeah.
Alexander, Gus donated $5 34 minutes ago, and he says, "Looking good, Alexander. Loving the casual look."
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you
it's
for the
great.
casual look. Was he ironic or did he mean it?
No, I think he was serious. He's serious.
You should
I
see
think
all
it was
the,
authentic communication.
all the get-ups that Alexander has with these art people in Sweden. He's wearing like leather and stuff. Amazing. But someone asked in the chat if Z is going to become the new Napoleon. I mean, I know that's a joke, but I think that we have to consider, I mean, China's role in all of this. I mean, what happens when we import this sort of like Dengist, like, you know, neo-Orientalist strongman into Western politics, or even if that's possible?
It's not possible.
Yeah, go ahead, Logo. Go ahead.
No, I don't. I mean, I don't know if Deng is more of like an export from us than the other way around for the most part.
Yeah, you're right.
But
because then the Soviets kind of fucked them over in the 70s, and then they're like,
it's China's history is extremely hard to figure out from this side of the world, because they don't like really translate that much of their stuff, and we don't really seem that interested in translating a lot.
They're
of
just
their
good at
goings on.
copying like IP and stuff.
I mean, that's what everyone says, but then at the same time, like they're on the their science fiction scene right now is like miles ahead of like.
Well, they're
the
outliers,
literary
and you have
production
that.
now.
You have a ton of people. There's going to be outliers.
I don't think it's because necessarily
their contemporary art world, as well as like, in my opinion, far ahead of what's going on in New York right now.
They're also like China over COVID has become like Shanghai fashion has kind of become like the like up there with like London or Manhattan or whatever.
It's similar to if you look at infrastructure for internet in America compared to infrastructure for internet in other areas in Europe. Essentially, what happened is America built out first for a lot of stuff, and because we built out first, a lot of our stuff doesn't work as well, and it's not as efficient.
Old. It's legacy
and
shit.
they basically in Europe they could look at it and be like, oh, we can do this actually better. And it's a similar thing with China and Asia in general, is that you have the Western world in a sense mostly leading most innovation and that sort of stuff, and then you have them able to copy to a better degree in certain respects.
Well, I would say
there's also another
the
key.
Chinese can be innovative, but they innovate in different ways. So if you take tribal poesis instead of auto poesis, so you don't have the idea that it itself that it has an evolution, but actually the evolution itself is systemic. That works for the Chinese. I work for Chinese companies. I know how they try to innovate, but I also know that they're now exploring having European engineers working for them, where the Europeans do what they're good at and the Chinese do what they're good at. But it's not necessarily that the Chinese mimic and some Westerner innovates. That's kind of a myth. That's not how it works, because the Japanese and the Koreans innovated the same way that the Chinese do. And they obviously innovate. And now they have a patent industry and all that because they're playing into that global game. I think the Chinese problem is this one. They're building a sociocracy. They're building a police state. They really are. And they believe they're building the Napoleonic police state. It's like, this is what the police state should be like. And why our work is popular in Taiwan and Korea is obviously because they want to be the alternative. Like, is it possible to build a police state that's open and free in some way? Because we think that's better and it's more creative and it's also more long lasting. Because the problem always with tyranny and dictatorship, from a strictly amoral point of view, is that they tend not to be stable over time. Napoleon, Hitler didn't last long. That's the problem with Xi Jinping. I think he took on the dictatorship in 2014 because actually his part of the Communist Party was too weak. And he basically said, okay, I'm going to take over everything. But what he had to do then was to reinstall the sort of North Korean dictatorship model of Mao Zedong to install himself. And I think
that's not true.
He's even pursuing a new cultural revolution as well. Because
but have you looked at what that cultural revolution looks like? It's go forth and start your business. Like, it's all like entrepreneurship. It's literally like Horatio Alger.
Well, what happened with
Chinese
what
dream?
happened
Like,
with Jack Ma?
class.
Joel had something to say. Then Joel, you go ahead.
Wait, real quick. Is Jack Ma still around? Is he back, or is he?
Yeah, he's back. He made a.
He's back, but he's muted.
Good.
Good.
Fuck
he's
Jack
back
Ma.
in the call, but he's muted.
All right, Joel, go for it.
Just like the point that I wanted to make on this issue with the Chinese and like this kind of capitalism, socialism debate, or like if you want to define the Chinese model as state capitalism or something rather than calling it socialism, whatever. But the point is that like this idea that like this thing called central planning, and there's this other thing that isn't central planning that we do, I find to be total BS. It's just
Thank
like who's
you.
doing the planning. Like in the United States, the planning is done by, Goldman Sachs and other like hedge funds, and like ultimately someone has to decide where is capital allocated, right? So like either the state can create a bank, which like is like the dominant capital allocator, or a bunch of hedge funds can conglomerate and go meet at the Bilderberg group and have a conspiracy to overthrow the government and determine we're going to be the ones that like allocate capital. But either way, it's the same shit. Like it's just like with different, like a very different strategic focus. At least in China, it's like a formalized system.
It's different.
So I'm getting one thing, and I'm gonna go back to you, Paul. But I'm getting the vibe both from Joel and Logo that these authoritarian countries, like, well, at least they admit it. At least they admit they're bastards. That seems to be
I'm not. I don't
that's
think
not
that
what I'm
there is
saying.
a
I'm not saying they're
non-authoritarian
bastards.
country.
I'm saying that they're actually intelligent because they integrate their capital allocation strategy into their overall governance and geopolitical strategy, and so they have a coherent strategy for how their economy and political systems work.
If it's going to be
the decisions
stable.
are made by the same people, whereas in the United States you have a bunch
An
of
alien ogre class, that hates.
you have a bunch of capitalists, many of which aren't necessarily like part of the United States security state. It's a kind of this complicated like milieu of these different factions that have to like, and so there isn't the same kind of strategic organization that you see in China. And so like like you could see it by the relative strength of the Chinese relative to the Americans, where like clearly the American strategy is failing in terms of just like in terms of like an amoral assessment of where like what's more productive, like who's winning,
in the short,
like uplifting their people, who are like developing like better infrastructure, who's like ascending in terms of
there's
like,
more there's more people in poverty in America than in China right now.
Yeah.
That's
Wait,
just a fact.
Logo, how do you know this?
You can look if you look at the Credit Suisse report on global wealth. It just is. You can just go read the.
How does the Credit Suisse report know this? How are they able to document all those farmers in China, all those peasants living there?
The United States economy has been literally collapsing for about 40 years.
Credit Suisse isn't exactly
because all the growth in the so-called growth in the American economy is just financialization.
Yeah, it's bullshit.
So like the GDP
we're
goes up
talking
by
about 2 different things
3%.
here. We're talking about the
No.
Wait, guys, let's Paul tell him.
Listen to what I'm saying.
Lev, if you go to the sushi chat, I posted a schizophrenic picture that I post a lot.
Thank you. I'm gonna take a look.
Yeah, if you could post that for people to see.
Oh my God, it's all.
It's
There's so much blood.
Chart.
There's so much blood.
No, it's essentially it goes back to, and it actually applies to China too, but it goes back to the Joel's point based on kind of socialism kind of coming out of capitalism, and also the sociology coming out of basically dominating everything. And it applies to China too. Essentially, what the chart is basically it's basically if you look, there's like two dragon type. I forget they're not dragons.
Ouroboros.
Yeah, it's the Ouroboros. But essentially, if you look on the left, there's the masculine when it's ascendant, and that's essentially the masculine is building structures to extract resources and value and that sort of thing. And essentially, at a certain point, there's an inflection point where the structures are built up, and basically the system is complicated enough where the dominant force actually switches from masculine to feminine, where it's more about being agile and navigating the systems rather than building new ones. And so, in the context of China, basically what you have is a masculine force basically guiding systems and building systems.
And America's more gynocentric force.
And so essentially with China, you're building up all these systems or whatever, and like Barb was saying, with the reason fascism and dictators don't generally last long is because it's more directed and it's more masculine.
They overcode the masculine.
Yeah, but it builds up the structures. It builds up the structures to, at a certain point, like what's going to happen with China is you're going to get all these officials and you're going to get all these power structures that exist, and they work in the short term, but those are going to be infiltrated by people who are more feminine. And this doesn't mean women, but feminine in the sense they're able to navigate and manipulate rather than
energy,
create.
the chi of
and then,
the propensity of the feminine, as they say.
And so And so in that sense, the American inefficiency for that sort of thing and the European inefficiency for that sort of thing is better long term, because eventually you do get to the point where you have the people who are basically controlling things are basically, they're more manipulating and, you know, kind of just moving laterally instead of vertically. And so essentially with the chart and with that sort of thing, the difference now compared to, you know, Hitler or Lenin or Stalin or whatever, you know, an example of a strongman is that the authoritarian structures are synthetic in nature. They're external, they're programmed. You have like China building, you know, apps for, you know, reporting people, that sort of thing. So you don't need competency in the authoritarian, in the ranks of the people managing the system. And so the authoritarianism and the abuses of that, when that eventually happens, can go on much longer than in the past.
Because they've negated the sort of the same problems that bio-Leninism in the Western world has.
Yeah, because you have a synthetic
people.
exoskeleton that's now basically housed by people who are, in the past, it was a biological exoskeleton, and you needed you need somebody who's an inspirational leader, who's, you know, their corruption is not going to be so bad that the people who are working for them are going to be, you know, not willing to do it.
In China, a good concept to sort this, and this again, this was like I did this in my grad studies.
Wait, before you go for the China concept, 50 NOK from
is that kroners?
Gondola. The Ouroboros will stop eating its tail when it realizes that it feels more like eating tail than getting its tail eaten.
Well, through the anus, I feel that eating tail, I feel like that is true. We live in an age of great inversion, and now that we are, and literally through the archetypal death passage, it's like, why do you think it's such a popular pornographic trope? Because throughout human history, there's always been this sort of lurid sexuality. But anyways, in China, they have this concept called shi. Okay, so there's SHU rather than chi. We all know what chi is, right? The life force, the
prana,
kundalini, so forth.
Yeah.
Prana, vril, yes. So shi is disposition of things. It is the energetic sort of it's propendency of things. So the propendency of the natural tendency of certain things to fall into place. So there's a whole litany of studies that go into how the Chinese are basically, they discovered this thousands of years ago, where there are natural tendencies among things and among peoples and among institutions. So they're casually sort of naturalistically manipulating things in such a way that the propendency of the Chinese century is going to fall into place in a certain way that will come off as organic. So this is what we have to realize. Whereas in America and, well, the Western world in general, the sort of this natural gravitation of putting yourself into a propendency, the sort of the portents into something, that's gone, because we like to just force our way into things. We like to have this like Faustian spirit that really doesn't care about our natural disposition, because we mythologize the sort of, you know, yeoman farmer trailblazer finding a new land, closing of the frontier, all that bullshit. And to a certain extent, Japan has sort of gotten with that vibe a little bit as well. But so we have these sort of two natural things. But now what happens when this sort of originary masculine disposition or propendency of the American empire, what happens when that becomes feminine in the sense of the sort of passive navigating of institutions and looking for the natural dispositions and things, and not really questioning the sort of fundamentals, not really becoming a Faustian in that sense, but rather just coping, if you will. What happens when this sort of the Faustian man, the great experiment of Europe, the American century, what happens when that becomes muted, that becomes lowered into a more feminine disposition and energy? What's going to happen then? Will China take up the Faustian mantle? Will they sort of emerge as like these bloodthirsty American capitalists, like Logo, you were saying, that's happening right now?
Xi Jinping
right?
has read Faust and Joe Biden hasn't, so I think it's pretty
there
simple.
you go. Yeah, that's.
But the Chinese
if you bring in
do.
Quigley and Toynbee into this, like their model of like civilizational expansion, you always have to have some kind of vector of expansion, which basically the elite in any one society, they have to cooperate against to achieve some kind of external goal.
Yes.
And that internal cooperation produces like kind of internal coordination that is generally socially beneficial, because they need to build up strength.
For how long though? That's what I don't get here.
And then eventually, that is achieved, And then once it's achieved, then if they don't find another way of expanding, then it starts to atrophy, and they turn against each other and start jostling for position. And so they have internal. So you see this with the United States, like up until the 70s, like from the end of World War II up to the 70s, you see all this amazing technological development, this kind of ascension of American industrial capacity, fighting the Cold War, it kind of exacerbating its its power in various ways. There's a large degree of class collaboration and so forth. And then you get this period where, like, as the United States starts to overpower and like become and achieve victory in the Cold War, you see like all the banking regulations changed, like this kind of relation of sabotage, the financialization of the economy, and the kind of like the mass looting of like the American empire by its own elite sets in, and this slowly degrades the social fabric.
That relates to Bataille essentially saying an organism isn't defined.
Waste, yes.
It's not defined by how it invests its energy. It's how it dispenses with its excess energy.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, what are we left with, really?
And waste is so vital, because in the Accursed Chair, he goes into how waste is such a vital aspect of the modern economy itself, but also in the work of art as well. That's another distinction that Bataille makes, because in the work of art, waste and excess is almost a given. And so it's really the only form of toleration towards waste in society that is very overt. I mean, it's true. I mean, and he was writing this in the 60s. He was writing this in the, like, when Abex was dying, now you had like minimalism. But he's saying, no, that originary spirit that's of waste and excess, that was there in the work of art as well. And minimalism was just like this temporary blip. And by the time the 70s rolled around, post-minimalism, baby, Jackson Pollock comes back, Andy Warhol, Basquiat, then later after him. Sorry, I'm just fucking jerking myself off.
I want to wind things back a little bit to America versus China. What is going to last longer?
This is great, but this is the
okay,
great
wait.
point.
Can I get in there? Can I get in there?
Yeah.
Okay. So China could have been Taiwan, and Taiwan could have been China. It could have just happened, but it didn't after 1948.
Yeah,
China
the Bushes couldn't get it to happen, man.
No, but if you just think of it that way, then China would be a lot stronger than it is now, because China had that potential, and Taiwan is.
No, they'd be way more beholden to the American foreign policy.
No, wait. It's all about the power sharing aspect of it. A system is never stronger than if the guy at the top dies. What happens if the guy at the top dies? Well, the Communist Party would probably survive in China. Would be chaos and stock markets everywhere around the world if a Chinese dictator dies. Not if an American president dies. Kamala Harris takes over.
Yeah, because they don't matter.
Yeah, exactly. Doesn't matter.
They're not real. They don't actually have
stronger
power.
when it doesn't matter. But
it's good that we have an
China's been
technocracy.
constructed over the last 10 years after 2014. It's now much more vulnerable than it was in the past. And this is going to be the problem for China eventually. Yes, you do eventually, the masculine energy goes out, because even if it's split.
Phallic energy, if you will.
Yeah, it should be split phallic energy, by the way. That's why it lasts. If it lasts a long time, it's a split phallus. Divided phallus, two-headed phallus, by the way. But if it isn't, then you get a dictator, and then it lasts a lot shorter. And then you get bureaucracy and administration, whatever you call it, feminine energy comes into the picture, and then the whole system falls apart eventually. But China, I think the problem for China today, and they know this, they know the big risk they're playing, is that it's Xi Jinping's dream, and it's like a little boy. He's a boy pharaoh. He's out there with this story about China conquering the world, the Belt Road Initiative. And they know that investing in infrastructure is the strongest point, because it's what they always did. That's what you do. We have a strong state in any economy, and America's weak with that. Infrastructure in America is terrible. In China is fantastic. But that's not the only thing. After the infrastructure is there, the thing is, what kind of creation will come out of that? And I think this is the one issue nobody's talking about. What happens if Chinese companies decide the home market isn't necessarily that interesting for them, and they start leaving China? That's perfectly possible. I know Geely are considering.
I mean, that's what TikTok is to a degree, isn't it?
Yeah, Geely are considering it. They're the car company that is the least connected to the Chinese Communist Party, that operate the most freely. They're buying into Mercedes and Volvo in Europe. They're apparently planning that maybe just moving to Taiwan or somewhere else is an option. And if these companies take their very functioning, efficient bureaucracies with them and leave China, which is perfectly possible, you have to remember you have 100 million exiled Chinese people in the world today, and they're incredibly wealthy and influential. They got Falun Gong TV stations and everywhere. They're in Canada, America, Australia.
They're buying up all our real estate.
Yeah,
here
and they also have like Chinese Communist Party propaganda, like all through like these communities as well, that are like often highly nationalistic.
No, Joel, the only reason you stay in China is because you've been fooled into believing it's a huge market of 1.2 billion people. 50 years from now,
the
China
Chinese
will be
party
small.
actively encourages its population to move into Western countries so that it can have more political influence.
They do as well, yes.
Just yesterday, just yesterday, New Zealand announced that it was leaving the Five Eyes Intelligence Alliance.
So
to
why
kind of
isn't
align itself with
Taiwan
China.
joining communist China in that case? I just ruined your case. There you go.
No, you didn't, because the Chinese have like actively encouraged their population to move into New Zealand. They've got all of their intelligence agents. Like New Zealand's foreign minister is literally an ex-Chinese agent. So it's not like people are leaving China because like, oh, China sucks. They're leaving China because China gives them interest-free loans to go and buy property
They paid for
in
the
Australia,
universities here in Canada. Yes.
Yeah, and like they're actively encouraging it because they want to have political influence over
That
these
wasn't
countries.
my point, though. My point was this: what makes China vulnerable? Because we're making a comparative study of China and America 50 years from now. That's
But
what
do
we're
you
doing.
think but Joel, do you think with the
China will probably
Chinese
invade
propaganda-
Taiwan in the next 5 years.
Yeah, they're going to take Taiwan very soon.
Yeah.
But Joel, do you think that, for example, you talked about how the Chinese people, when they go to these Western nations, they have these propaganda newspapers and outlets that they're reading. Do you think, and I know, Lev, you're going to jump all over this. Do you think that it's similar to how like expats from the Soviet Union back in the day, they sort of were reading Pravda still, even though they were from like Czechoslovakia, they were from Slovenia or wherever, and they were reading Pravda still, and they were like, oh yeah, this is the way things are. But then they lived in like a decadent Western world. So do you think that like the same, I know it's America, but like the same Western decadence will sort of like make that sort of comprehension of themselves as being Chinese citizens? Do you think that sort of like will slowly erode them over time, the way that, for example, back in the 2007, we all thought that Islam was going to take over Europe, but in reality, neoliberalism took over Islam in Europe. Do you think it's the same, or do you think that the Chinese have sort of a deeper connection to themselves as a people that will stave off this sort of like, Western, here comes the fucking Levi jeans and watching,
well, for people
what do
who
they
have
watch in the 70s? They watched cowboy movies.
For people who have a deeper connection to themselves as a people, they sure do run over a lot of themselves and not really do anything about it. And I understand that there's like legal things that have to do with that, but still.
Yes, we've all watched
really,
the rec compilations.
That really
Chinese.
says a lot about
There's a massive difference between Islam, which is like this like sincere religious like worldview, and like being Chinese, which is just like, hey, someone's giving me money to do stuff, I like money. That's basically Chinese culture, which is like not that different to wearing Levi jeans or not wearing Levi jeans. So I don't really see how they can be corrupted by the West.
Yeah,
when they're really just like better at being Westerners than us in some ways.
Yeah, exactly. The real thing that the Chinese are going to do, and that they'll be capable of doing, we talk about like how long are these things going to last? Well, every empire falls, etc. China's had a bajillion empires. They rise and fall. They even have like a little truism amongst themselves where it's like the kingdom long divided must unite, the kingdom long united must divide. And that's just what happens in Chinese history. They're kind of okay with it. We're at a point where like we're in a unification period. It's a pretty strong unification period for China. I don't see any real, like, I think it's like coordinated at the same time as like the destruction of like the Anglo-American hegemony. I think like this is sort of aimed to be a time of reprising it and like kind of a triumphal victory lap with like Brexit and things, and like the creation of like the whole Kanzukas, like Five Eyes, etc. All of these sorts of connections. The real political zone right now is in the South China Sea, everything around there, and the varying alliances there. Like it's not written in stone that the Philippines and Korea, all these other countries are going to always be like American allies. I that's like just a consequence of like of history in like the 20th century, but it's not necessarily always going to be like that. So like I'm not really that interested in like, well, yeah, if China just like completely fucking owns right now and they're building a ton of infrastructure and they're expanding, and it seems like they have like they have a more optimistic culture. Their people are just generally happier on almost all metrics that people measure them on compared to Westerners.
Wait, but sorry, who is measuring the people? That's what I understand. Like
these are like any sorts of like polling group. Like I'm.
But isn't that kind of Reddit tier too when they're saying, "Oh, look at these statistics"? Like why?
Yeah. But you're going to ultimately defend America in the same way. Like this. But at the same
time,
what are you going to do?
But at the same time, I am kind of skeptical of this sort of like implicit cinephilia that I don't know, like people expand.
No, but I'm not a cinephile. Like I think this is disgusting.
No, Joel, I know you're not. No.
I think this is like the judgment that the West is like kind of like receiving for its like rabid nihilism, disassembling our own culture, and so that like Chinese ant people can like step into it and do this terrible nihilistic worldview that we have now better.
I
than
feel like
us.
we need to
Now, let me
respect the
finish.
Chinese more. We need to respect
Well,
the Chinese more.
why? I like being racist, but also secondly,
like every
secondly,
Australian should.
yeah, what's also interesting is that you're seeing this in Japan, you're seeing this in Australia, you're seeing this in various other Southeast Asian nations. This recognition that the American empire is collapsing, the United States can no longer be relied upon, and so we're developing alliances. Like Australia and Japan just signed a historic military alliance just a few months ago. The Japanese and the Germans are like sitting down and doing a very interesting diplomatic talks lately. I was reading about the other day, because obviously the Germans compete with the Chinese as like a rival manufacturing state. And so there's a large amount of shuffling of the deck. Like if America was to collapse, the Russians and the Chinese are not going to be so cozy anymore. The Russians are probably going to compete with the Chinese for Eurasian hegemony. There's a lot of different factors here. And I don't think it's like China's just going to take a victory lap if America collapses. I think it's going to be this massive reshuffling of the deck, and it's unpredictable to see what will happen. But I think it'll be very difficult for any one state to assert hegemony. Like the Chinese, whilst having like,
I don't think there's any
certain,
state
The
that
Chinese
wants to.
don't want to assert unipolar hegemony.
yeah. I think because I think they're realistic. They know that they wouldn't really be able to, even
But
if
they're
they
taking
wanted to.
different parts of Africa. I wouldn't say that's global, but that is something.
That's more.
Yeah,
economic.
they're gonna be imperialist.
Here in Canada.
But like,
Wait,
They're also
it's like
hated like
colonialism
mad in
and global
One at a
hegemony.
time, one at a
They're two
time.
different
Yeah,
things.
Alexander,
Yeah, the Africans, they hate them.
Alexander.
Okay, China moves into Africa. They do what? They build the road with Chinese workers, and it lasts for 3 months, and then it cracks open. That's why they hate them in Ethiopia. They hate them everywhere. They move in, and they do the loan thing. So what they do right now is that they put up the loans out there, and they run debt economies with tons of countries in Latin America and Africa. Okay, that might last for a while in an exploitative sense, but any chance you got to get out of the Chinese control, they will, because the Chinese can't really authentically relate to the cultures they try to invade. That's the problem. They're too cynical in that sense.
Yeah, but did every empire well, except for the British, they tried a little bit, despite what people say. Did any empire really authentically relate to the cultures that they conquered?
No, that's why they don't last.
That's why they
don't last. That's the problem. Imperial orders are weak. They're always weak. And the 3 weak systems they got in the world today are Russia, which will go down soon, and then China and America. They're weak. These large systems are weak.
And that's true.
America would be better if Texas left. It would be better.
But that's the thing. I think what
you
Joel's
need your
saying,
Brexit. Yeah.
Well,
it's similar to what what happened in Vietnam, right? Like further south or east, I forget. Like this is what Francis Ford Coppola was alluding to in Apocalypse Now, which is taken from Heart of Darkness, which is that America confronted its unconscious in the East, and America is confronting its unconscious in the East. But small faller, you had a point, or
Oh, did I?
Yeah, you were trying.
That's
to
what
say
everyone's
something?
wondering.
Oh, I was thinking I just had this spin on it, right? You were
Yeah.
talking about like what happens if the Chinese state, they start losing all their car companies to go work somewhere else. Well, what happens in America when all our private military corporations start contracting with the Chinese instead of
Oh
us?
yeah, that's true.
I don't think the military really. I think like I said, I think the psychic economy is dominant over the physical, and I think most military stuff at this point is just slush funds and people paying off friends.
Well, no,
and that
actually,
sort of stuff.
I do have a point to
responsible
make.
for all of American technological development since World War II. When you look
Yeah,
at,
but that's the thing is
bioengineering,
we're in a new paradigm where
All right, now
we're an evolutionary
no,
bottleneck.
You don't have
where
to
it's
kill
different, where the
people, you just
nation,
have to
where
All
the
right,
destroy
nation,
their
Joel.
soul.
Okay,
nation
okay,
state
here's what
really
we're gonna do.
isn't-
Here's what we're gonna
you know.
do. Joel, and after Joel, I want to bring things
John.
back to the original.
Well,
Joel
John had a
Davis.
point.
Oh, okay, John, then Joel, and then I'm gonna bring things back to the actual subject of this episode. But John, go for it.
Okay, so like Paul, the one argument I have against your point is like I don't understand this like the psychic economy is that you're saying is just dependent on a flatlining of optimization, because like most of the increases in production and even change now are more just a further optimization of technologies or like conceptual things like Claude Shannon or the transistor that were basically figured out almost 100 years ago, and it's really just even artificial intelligence like neural networks were conceptually conceived of like with observations of I think the sodium channel like even like 80 years ago. So it's I think I don't see how like the schema of what's going on with technological development and construction of new technologies is supposed to change. If anything, we would be waiting for another, like, if that's possible, if we can where we are with human consciousness can produce like a greater technology that can be further.
What I'm saying essentially is that with the psychic economy, or we could say digital economy if you want to be less hippie about it, but
I'm a hippie.
What's happened essentially is that resources and resource distribution and acquisition have been abstracted to the point where they used to be tied to geographical regions, and that's how countries and that sort of thing and communities sprung up. So you would have, you would want a city in a port area, and from the city you would have good job opportunities. From that you'd have lots of people there. From that you'd have intellectuals come out, because that's where the information was tied to the spot. You needed money to move information, reproduce it, that sort of thing. With the psychic economy, essentially you can, everything is, there's no, physical geography doesn't really matter. So essentially what the people who are winning, essentially they don't need these like nation states and communities to protect their wealth, because once again you don't need a warehouse full of gold that needs to be protected by armies. You can have a USB stick, and you can email yourself your Bitcoin keys.
This is total bullshit in my opinion. I mean, like resources clearly are really important. Like, why the fuck does
resources are important, but they're abstract.
Yeah, but Joe, look at all these.
They're not abstract. They're not abstract. Why the fuck why is America in Syria right now? Like, it's because
that's the old guard. That's the old institutions they have the physical.
They're not old institutions. Like, electricity needs to come from somewhere, dude. Like, if you have no electricity,
and somebody's gonna do it.
What are you gonna plug your computer into to download your Bitcoin on?
But the actual upper crust, and especially if you look at things like Musk's Starlink or whatever, once you get infrastructure which basically has the psychic link for everybody across the world, where you don't need to physically protect different infrastructure, then essentially you have all the resources abstracted. And what money is essentially just a representation of energy expended over time. And people trade that. It's just a representation. Somebody worked for a day to make X amount of money, and they know they can give that money to somebody else to have them do X amount of work for a day.
But I think
so. Once you have money abstracted, like it's being right now with cryptocurrency, that sort of thing. Once you have information abstracted, the people who are winning, the people who build up structures and that sort of thing, they don't need nation states, and they don't need cities.
Money has always been abstract. That's what money is. Money is abstract.
But money is an attempted abstraction, but it's being perfected. It's being more towards Platonic ideal.
So Joel, we had a conversation in private, you, me, and Gio, which was a very interesting one. I wish we could have recorded that one, but we were talking part about Russia. And one thing you were mentioning was, Russia's going to conquer Ukraine and get all these fancy seaports, and it's going to be big and strong like a Russian bear. You weren't saying it like that, but basically, the idea here is, my counter to that would be, look at all the countries around Russia that may not have the same amount of resources but are kicking Russia's ass financially, economically, and these are countries where a lot of people are illiterate.
Lev, why do you always gotta hate on Russia all the time, constantly? Because
I want to improve it. Because I want to improve it. If I didn't give a shit about Russia,
so emotional about this, man. I don't want to.
Because
I don't want to argue with you about it, dude.
No, look, because I'm
his uncle is Navalny. Okay?
Hold on, Joel, because I'm part Russian, and I actually
enters the chat.
And I actually give a shit about the Russian people, and I actually want them to improve. I want their situation to improve. So I'm not just gonna sit on the side.
If you talk to the Russians, they don't want help from American expats.
It depends on which Russians you're talking about, Logo here. Because if you're talking about the Russians that are constantly being brainwashed, watching Russian TV, then sure, absolutely. But again, there were people,
or the ones getting brainwashed watching American TV. Which
there
one?
were people.
But
back in the day.
Lev,
yes.
It's true that America is persistently trying to distort the picture of the Russians have of themselves. I mean, come on. What do you think? Why do you think they jailed Pussy Riot? I agree with that, by the way, because Pussy Riot's a terrible band. But there's all this bullshit that's going on. Why do you think all of these protest signs are in English? I mean, that is a further it's an entrenching of American power within the culture of these local.
Yeah, but
places.
Gio, we're spoiled. We're all spoiled here. We're not living in that environment. If you were to actually live in that environment,
but
I'd be very interested.
I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to talk about this. What I wanted to mention was,
you guys can go to Belarus right now and find out what it's like to sit in the prison under Lukashenko. Just do that, okay? That's Life's point. It's extremely valuable.
Lukashenko's base. That's the difference.
He's base of red
You're spoiled brats, all of you.
But I think the oh god, the disagreement.
Me? I'm not spoiled.
If Paul Town, okay, it's like if we were to have a conversation, and Jean-Michael Greer, Paul Town would be Nick Land, Joel will be John Michael Greer, because eventually I agree with Paul Town. I agree that the platonic idea of crypto, even though I'm not invested in crypto, I think there's something there. But at the same time, I feel that the hard limits of the facticities of natural resources and so forth, and Malthusian economics and so forth, I think that in some ways we might get to that thing. But I think the whole notion of like hard AI and the further abstraction. I mean, we're already live within the abstraction of the self.
It's not just that. It's the abstraction. The abstraction has reached a point where, so essentially, me personally, once I'm off probation for my violent felony, I can go to anywhere in the world, and I can basically get an inflow of resources just from my work, and basically.
You're gonna have to pay taxes to America.
And pay taxes. And I can basically expend those resources in a small localized community that isn't related to any world power or that sort of thing, and essentially be a functional member of that community, benefit that community, and also not worry about I have $10 million now, I need to have an army to protect it. I can if that community fails, I can go hop on a plane or hop on a boat.
This is so
That's exactly
solipsistic,
why
though.
the elites today operate within something called the global empire. And the global empire is the empire of the economy and technology. That's totally global.
Right.
The ocean.
No reason for data flows or for the economy or capital to see any borders anywhere. So it's all global. Where do they move? They move to Singapore and Dubai. They move to city states that are well protected, where you don't get the COVID-19 shit, or you get the shot the first day it arrives. Luxury places, great education. Kids speak Mandarin, English, and French.
Outposts of the Anglo-American
That's
Empire.
where the elite live. That's where the elites live now. That's where.
But those, like you said, I think is like this is the gestational stage of a new sort of thing. I think what's essentially going to happen is over time, people are going to realize, I can collect all these resources and not. I don't have to invest in a community. I can kind of be like a nomadic sort of person where I can move from different areas. And if those areas don't protect me properly, I can just move to the next one. I don't really have to invest in politics. I don't really have to invest in security, that sort of thing. I can just kind of just hop from area to area.
That's exactly that's how people live in Dubai. That's how people live in Dubai. If they want to leave Dubai, they move to Singapore.
Why is it?
How can they live like in Dubai? Because there's a big fuck ton of oil sitting there.
Yeah, and then once that's gone, they can go somewhere else.
Dubai does not have any oil, Joel. It doesn't.
Well, what you're kind of talking.
That's exactly why it worked, because it didn't have oil.
And why is there all these Dugan disrespecters in the chat? This is a Duganist podcast. No, I'm kidding.
The way it sounds to me is like what you're describing is like you could call it like this is kind of how just hereditary aristocracy always worked, though, right? The
but it's a different
could always move to a new.
I don't really.
But it's a different class. Capital. It's a different class because the capital is so much more abstracted that. It's going to the 4% of the population. That's going
true.
To eventually, it's going to be a bigger percentage of the population eventually because they're the ones who are going to breed.
Paul, this is what I'm talking about with optimization. I mean, I just feel like this is exactly the same as like humanist culture. I'm
not saying it's different. It's the same process. It's just it's
literally like an optimization of humanist culture. But I think that like has already reached its absolute point of
but John, do you think
it's not going to be a way of life available to everyone? Would be my
that's right. Yeah, there's going to be
limited.
There's going to be the minority.
All right, great. I'm
actually
actually happy we finally got back to that. The way of life being limited. This is what I wanted to go back to.
Okay, so Joel, then John.
Okay, but specifically Joel and John, I wanted to circle back about the topic.
But I just wanted to say one thing before.
Yes. Okay.
I would ask John, do you think that within that sort of humanistic abstraction of capability is the seeds of a post-humanism? That's what every fucking theory cell that goes to Goldsmith is debating.
If I'm gonna show who I'm like thinking through, I mean that's like what the whole like Sloterdijk thing is. Yeah. I mean, I think I just think that I don't understand. I think it's already just been completely like the game that has been played already since like the 1960s, and I don't think it actually has that much more room to grow. And I wonder if.
Well, that's the thing. That's where you're wrong. It's a generational thing. So you have the ecosystem change, but you have the actual people and the infrastructure has to change generationally, and there's a much bigger lag for the infrastructure to be degraded and general quality of life for the average person who's not taking advantage of the new ecosystem to have their, to lose out, because there are jobs, there are roles, it's basically it's time lagged. So essentially what you're seeing now is you're seeing the beginning of the abstraction of capital and that sort of thing, but we're not at the point where we are now, which is like, this is like the first generation of really digital natives.
My argument is I don't understand how the way that firms function isn't already like basically an irreducible level of abstraction.
What do you mean?
The only way that it could become more abstracted is if you like were able to like conceive of society and the economy as if like actually directly as thermodynamic measurements. Like,
and
what do you mean by
intensities
firms?
and flows and scales? Yeah.
Like an actual corporation and a firm, like that, it really doesn't have that many like variables of like, there's not like, we've already come to understand like the actual irreducible like system of a corporate firm, and then like have been able to use like individuals.
I'm saying those are
game of understanding it financially, like through like financially and also like through like branding of like, because I mean for you, right?
Yeah.
If you think that you're like of an avant-garde of people in what you're calling a psychic economy, I'm not saying that
on the upper crust. Yeah.
No, I mean I don't mean that in any like way that's like
no, it's fine. That's fine.
Paul is our wunderkind.
Yeah. I mean, I'm exactly
Nietzsche's Ubermensch.
I basically, I mean, I've almost all my money in my entire life and all of my friends I've made online. So, yeah. But I just think that it's just what you're talking about is really just a change of like the actual communication system, rather than a further abstraction of capital.
No, it's basically so you had the beginning of the abstraction of resources with gold, that with bartering, then gold and that sort of stuff, and you have essentially it's getting to gold was the best they could do at that point, because you didn't have networks for that sort of thing. But essentially what money is, and money is an abstraction of energy over time. It's a representation of that, but that's the platonic form of it. And once you get to the point where with crypto, that's where we're getting to, is the point where it's almost perfect. It's obviously not perfect, but it's almost perfect. You're essentially you're divorcing, resource flows, which used to be tethered to physical things. So essentially a book is, just say my book's worth $20 or whatever. You're in the past when it's just physical, it costs money to ship that. It costs time to ship that. So there's an entropy involved in the transformation of information. Now with the internet, you can move it anywhere you want pretty much instantly. The entropy is pretty much gone. So the transfer.
But what I'm saying is that's only a difference in literally like the interface rather than
it's a difference in entropy in basically the movement of capital.
But I don't think there's that much new stuff going on, because all of these things that you're talking about, where it's like making like these abilities to transfer money between countries and currencies, etc., like being able to like slip through
and the difference between storing it and that.
Yeah, sure. But all of these things were very much developed like way earlier in the 20th century, and this sort of class you're talking about, these are just like, you're just saying like this is like fundamentally the class that rules us still, where it's like like, oh yeah, you can just buy citizenship in another country if you have accumulated enough capital, and then
but it's just
collect
it's
passports, and you have
but it's different.
Flags of convenience.
It's the same. Yeah, it's the same process. It's just it's different in the entropy has been almost completely removed. The
barriers to entry to having your own like Swiss bank account is now lower. Sure.
Yeah, but it's not lower. My argument
is that's not actually like a representation of a change. That's just like a
it is. No,
it's a further refinement of a structure that already existed.
You're at a point in time in which like people are literally dying, and like
but those are the people who are losing it, and the thing is,
and so you can
what I'm saying with the difference between individual, the most people, and then the people who are now currently 4%, is that in the past you have these phenomenological, however you say it, cities spring up, communities spring up, which because these people who have the money, they need to have a community
Okay,
to protect
but
that.
sure.
They have the capital, and then
Well,
once you remove the need to protect once you remove the need to protect capital in a physical manner, then you remove the need for all like the little people who are not really winning.
But
But you
here's
still have to predict
here's
the
the
shit that
argument.
you buy with that money. Like you can't, the money can exist abstract, but ultimately you're gonna buy shit with it, or you just gonna
you
keep
can
it
buy
all.
you can basically
Yeah,
you
so
can
that
buy
shit's
you
gonna
can buy
have to
people
be
to do stuff
somewhere.
for you.
That shit's gonna have to be somewhere in geospatial reality.
Yeah,
so you still need someone to protect
you
it.
transfer it to a butcher to get a full cow or something. It's like you basically it's basically just
You
abstract.
just talk about like a more efficient like currency
Yeah,
system,
it's
or
more
more
efficient.
efficient bookkeeping. Okay, like yeah, but that's not like that doesn't fundamentally
Yes, it does.
revolutionize
It
how
does
industry works, because
it does
industrial production. No,
yeah,
it
and
doesn't.
it
doesn't, because
does
technology.
because I'll tell you. Explain,
No,
explain why.
guys, one at a time.
The psychic resources, which are information, and money is the form of that. Money is information, of energy expended over time, a representation of that. The psychic resources, they had an umbilical cord to the physical. So basically the physical was dominant. The physical economy was dominant over the psychic economy. Once you get the internet, once you get all brains in a network connected, and even Tesla commented on this, that humanity is a giant brain. Once you get all the brains connected, you can transfer those abstracted resources regardless of geography in a way that's fundamentally different than the past.
Yeah, but you didn't explain anything. You're just asserting something.
Well, this is just electricity.
Now I'll have a go at talking. So if you look at how technological industry actually works, and you look at like history itself, money has nothing to do with energy and time. If you look at the history of money, money is just abstracted bookkeeping. Before we started trading gold,
what is abstracted bookkeeping?
Yeah, so like at the beginning of, if you want to know what the beginning of currency systems
are, what is
abstracted
bookkeeping?
Well, let me explain. I listen to you, so listen to me. So at the beginning of money, the beginning of money is literally like you would have like in like ancient Mesopotamia or some shit. You'd have some imperial temple, and they would have a ledger, and they would like a stone ledger or something, and they would like mark down this many bushels of wheat, this many whatever like cow.
That's phenomenon
related
to it.
No, listen to what I'm saying. And so you would like basically this is like the basis of trade. You would have people would come and like drop stuff off. They're owed X amount. People would borrow stuff. They owe X amount, and there would be some kind of bookkeeping apparatus to kind of manage this distribution of resources from this like central location. And this was like a kind of complexification of like tribal organization, where you'd have like a chieftain who would be at the center of some like tribal distribution mechanism, who would kind of decide how all the resources in the tribe would be distributed. Obviously, once you go beyond Dunbar's number, you need to like write it down or something. This is actually the origin of writing as well.
And then there's symbolic exchange and everything.
Yeah, like symbolism, abstraction, all these things become necessary in this moment. Then gold, or like coinage, not even gold, but just coinage in general, starts to get issued so that you can like provide for people in basically provide for your military far beyond the direct territory that you control. And the reason why that money has value is because people know, merchants know, they can get those coins, take it back to the imperial temple, and pick up X amount of whatever the fuck.
They can trade it in for. They can trade it in for
it's abstracted
bookkeeping of energy expended.
No, because what it is like it's literally there's a central control system. There's a language that
you're talking about the mechanics around it. You're not talking about the actual thing. You're talking around what it is.
Well,
so if
Paul,
I trade
you can describe anything as energy systems.
Like everything in the universe is energy. Otherwise, it's nothing.
What you should do. The thing is, if I trade you a bar of gold for a cow, am I saying this bar of gold is the same as a cow? No, I'm saying the value of this is essentially you can trade this in for something that's equivalent to a cow in the future.
But if you went up to some tribe and you're like, here's a bar of gold, can I have a cow? They would be like pride to civilization. They wouldn't have some abstracted bookkeeping.
Yeah, they have to exist within the social relations.
Yeah, but that's why the psychic economy is the fundamental of that underwrites the physical.
I don't know. Honestly, I just think you.
Geo then Bar.
I wanted to bring in Alexander Bar because he is the man that came up with the term netocrat, right? So we see that the information economy is fundamentally transforming the way, not just the way we do business, but the way that we interact with each other. But I'm curious to hear Bard's thoughts on this discussion, because do you side with Paul Town to say that perhaps capital itself is not just a force that abstracts, but it itself is becoming abstracted in terms of exchanges of information? Because, like, I mean, NFTs, for instance, the NFT thing, that it's like, I'm a person that does a physical work of art, right? But now that you can sell it as an NFT, you can see the GIF or the painting or what have you, but that still is like an encoded information exchange that you are, Alexander Bard, are an owner of Lev's NFT. By the way, invest in Lev. Go and buy Lev's NFTs.
This is the super rare link right over here, superrare.com/artwork pyramider. This is the one.
Right. So someone buys that NFT, that is an exchange of information. There's nothing, there's physical bits, if you wanted to get reductive. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts, Alexander, in this discussion with Joel and Paul Town.
Two different things here. Blockchain and capital are not the same thing. Blockchain is basically how you try with technology to fix something in time so it can stay that way forever and you can't change it. That's the dream of blockchain. Capital is different here. But I think we're missing out that it's not necessarily capital that is the most dominant mode once the netocrats come in. That's not the rarest thing in the world today, therefore probably not the prices thing. The prices thing is attention. And that's what we've been talking about, attentionalism, for over 20 years. And I think there's a shift around 2012, which we don't realize attentionalism actually became more important than capitalism. So attention is the really rare thing here. It's really, 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 really hard to get anybody's attention. And the problem with attention is that the most precious attention is the one you will not trade. It's what money cannot buy. For some people, they're so poor that anything can be sold, including their own children. But for a lot of people, there are things we will not sell and will not put up for sale. And because those are the very things that are the most valuable now to an extreme extent, I think we need to start talking about attentionalism as radically different. So there's no attention economy, because we're actually talking about things we cannot trade. It's kind of spiritual and weird when you start thinking about it.
Right.
But I think we need to talk about attention as different than capital. At least it's a new category. The way land ownership dominated the world until capital came along. And then capital came along, and because capital was much more fluid and you could buy property with capital, then owning capital was more interesting than owning the land, because land was just one of the many things you could trade with the capital. But the problem today, because now in relationships between human beings, it's the attention that is the rare thing. And you can't get people's attention with money any longer. It doesn't help. That's exactly why we have this enormous deflationary pressure in the world economy. You throw money at things all the time, and still there's no inflation coming. Why? Because the things you really want right now, the things you really precious for you, are the ones you cannot buy. Now, how do you buy people when you cannot buy them? Well, you got to convince them in some kind of trading between people that there's an attention going on that is more interesting than capital itself.
But do you think that there is a symbiosis between the attention economy and capital? Because still capital is something that is like the raw hard assets.
What is capital?
I refuse to use the term attention economy. It's not an economy. That's the point. Economy is economy. Fine with that.
No, but you can commodify
attention. Attention is not trading.
What do you mean by capital? Like, can you define what does capital mean? Like what's your definition?
Any form of abstract value we could pass in between each other and accumulate and then distribute, etc.
So I would define capital as like ownership claims, right? So like if I am a capitalist, I have ownership claims, and therefore I have control over a certain enterprise.
The problem is actually capitus in Latin, which means head. And it's actually, capitalism actually is the idea of the nation state. And then we put capitalism in there when money flows, are what we're talking about. But say money then. So say money has existed for at least the last 5,000 years. And yet money is all around now, because money, what money did was that it actually put a price tag on anything that could be valued. And it did so globally. So we cannot fake any longer the actual trade value of this mug, for example. We know the mug because we put it out in the market. We get a price tag on it. This is how much it costs to buy it or whatever. So all products in the world that are up for sale are now democratically valued next to each other. And it's incredibly forced. That's exactly why it's fantastic. It's an incredible, brutal, phallic force that stormed its way into human society some 600 years ago in a much more efficient way. But now we got the money. We're still obsessed with the money because we're stuck with the money paradigm, like that was the most important thing. But I think we're missing out that there's another value here coming into the picture that used to be the sacred space or sacred rooms. It was really precious. And we didn't really talk that much about it because it was the one thing like love, like I will not sell somebody I love on the market, right? So those things that we will not buy, and that's our time. Our time is now becoming so precious to us. Our lifespan is so short to us, considering how intense it should be, that actually we will not trade our time for money unless we're really desperate. And that's exactly why the underclass gets stuck with capitalism, but the new upper class will look for a different value, which I call attention.
But at the same time, my friend, I would, recognition. Okay,
Status.
So someone wanted to ask me, to ask you, Logo, in the chat about how Hegel fits into this, but we'll get to that. What I think is that I think the problem is that capital is trying to infiltrate those things which you cannot sell, you cannot buy, and you cannot commodify, because commodity fetishism is still even more of an intensified process nowadays. I mean, look at the debate I had with the ALS stream. I mean, literally selling the token and the gestures and the pantomime of love to incels that have a lot of capital. So it's really what we're seeing now is capital is trying to infiltrate which is by definition without sale. And I think that's incredibly dangerous. But you're saying that their capital will ultimately fail in the end and it won't be able
yes, they will.
to modify.
I did a webcast.
But AL is making good money for herself, though.
Yeah, you still can.
Look at that Geo necklace.
This is the argument. Okay, this is the argument where I might be wrong, but this is the argument for potentialism. The argument is that the people who have the most attention, which they cannot trade, but they still have that, those are the very people who will get the capital at the end of the day. The capital will accumulate around the people who have the attention, and they still cannot trade it, and still they get the capital. That's how
celebrities. Yeah, no, I do agree.
No, celebrity. No, celebrity. That's old economy. That's economy. Like celebrities, no. I think we're gonna need to go beyond celebrities, influencers, all that shit, because they try to reach out to the masses. It is much weirder. It's like imagine you're a cult leader inside a netocratic cult.
So like Jared Leto.
I don't think they're there. I don't think these people are there yet. I think they will materialize eventually. I can't point them out yet, but take Peter Thiel. You know how incredibly hard it is to reach Peter Thiel with your ideas, right? Because he's not very accessible.
I don't know, man. I feel like he reads my account, but we'll see.
He probably
he funds all of us here.
We're probably on his list. The radicals, right? but at the end of the day,
he funds Paul Town's podcast.
But or here, Joel, this is the one. Maybe you are the one who has a lot of attention precisely because Peter Thiel has his eyes on you. Look at it that way. So the attention must not be considered an economy, because that's what we miss out on. It's like capital must not automatically be translated into a castle in the countryside, because then you miss out on all the potential you have with the capital. I think attention is radically new in gaining. It's not new, but it's the scale and the proportions that are new, that attention will now take over and start running the world.
Because
the
it's
world will be run from atomic war bunkers or something like that.
Okay,
by people
I agree.
Who live in communities, and they will control things.
I agree with you, but like, here's the question, right? So it's like, so how is attention actually, if we were to think of it this way, how is attention distributed amongst people? Like, how do people know who to pay attention to?
Maybe it can't be, attention is exactly what algorithms are pointing to. Who's the most credible person in the world, whatever you're interested in?
But at the same time, these are not organic, because they're being controlled by culture, industries, and by the media, right? Like that's
who does it? Your own behavior decides that. Algorithms are built on human behaviors. Who's there? And not the mass behavior, but where are the elite going? What are they doing? What do they prioritize? All of that is just data. And once you get that data and you decide you're going to go for the masses, you're going to go for the elite, the masses are looking at you, then you see a netocracy build. And that netocracy, the network of the people that everybody else wants to have access to but don't want to talk to you. So they're like, this is the network
like
of
celebrities,
they
like
will
e-celebrities. And like fashionistas.
No, because they go for the masses. Anybody out there who wants a lot of followers is already dead in this game.
No, but so this is like you're saying, like avant-garde art, right? Like avant-garde art, like the avant-gardists who are trying to keep themselves like
that's
low.
A much better place to go.
Such as myself, although I would love some money for what I do. I mean,
I don't want to fall into some like I feel like it's like, it's very very easy for me to be narcissistic about this. And be like, oh yes, of course, like tell me how cool I am. We
probably laugh off Burning Man today, but Burning Man used to be a place that I studied 50 years ago as an early example of potentialism in operation.
But Burning Man, but then Burning Man was later commodified by these, people.
It's not commodified, but it's sort of commodified. Okay, they don't have
feel like
there's right?
There's people like Matthew Siegel who talk about Burning Man as a sort of cosmic communitarianism. I think that was true at one point. My supervisor went to Burning Man back in the day, but I feel that nowadays,
Gio, there are 200 official burns around the world. Burning Man is too well known and all that, but artists, most cleverest, most exclusive burns in the world, they're the ones where you find attention. I'm just using an example where you need to go to find attention. And here again, attention is not individualist. It's not going to be in the calendar somewhere. It's not going to be money or anything like that.
But I feel like people
it's going to be collective.
Radical,
it's going to be tribal. It's going to be definitely tribal.
I was saying that, because people who definitely are radical, who are dissidents in some degree, whether it's in the work of art, whether it's being writers, or the fucking podcasters, I feel like we're going to see like some kind of neo-ocephale type of activities where we break off and form our own cults. That's probably what's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. So you will see attention happen. For example, when you have a lifestyle, you have a lifestyle, and your lifestyle means you want to live in a certain community, but you don't want anybody who pays to get their way in there. It's exactly when communities say, no, we don't accept people that are more money.
Like the Freemasons.
Yeah, of course we study those today. We study orders, we study loges, we study all these.
No, I kind of agree with you here because I feel like that's just what everyone's doing. Everyone's creating their own little secret societies. That is what attentionalism is. That's exactly what it is.
Well,
so it's ruled by mystery and things. Yeah.
I would replace this word attention with the word authority. I think it makes a lot more sense because there's kinds of attention, like all attention isn't worth the same. So there's kind of bad kinds of attention.
That's true.
But the kind of attention where what you're talking about, I think you should replace with authority because ultimately it's like when someone says something, you take notice, you imitate that individual, you imitate that style, you what I want to say about this quickly is that this is nothing new. Our entire society was built on authority and status up until since forever, because that's literally how all political hierarchies work. It's how every institution works. Talk about building cults. Yeah, we've built plenty of cults before. Yeah. Some of those cults got really big and became hegemonic religions or hegemonic systems of thought, systems of organizing society. There's nothing new about this at all.
No, it's scale again. It's a difference in scale and importance. So what happens is that if you look at how people socialize, and that's what they do in an online world with network, and they have network. You have a network pyramid eventually. You have people at the very bottom, social hierarchy, and then you have people at the top are much more attractive socially. And it's all about social attraction all the way up. And it's precisely when you go into the networks where you cannot buy your way in. That's where capitalism reaches its limit. You can be as wealthy as you like, but you won't get in. And because the value of the network, buy your way in. You have to be intentional value of the network will be lowered if you let somebody in you don't want there, right?
But at the same time, Alexander, at the same time, when you talked about this in the way back in the 90s in the Futurica trilogy, so you talked about, but it seems you're changing your tone. My critique of it, and something that you brought up in your trilogy, is that this isn't organic to the extent that there will always be sort of players and culture industries and sort of the organic informationism. We're not there yet because there's a lot of force. I truly believe if we lived in an organic sort of attention economy, that all of us in this fucking panel, we would like be making bank right now. We would be on like, I don't know, Joe Rogan or whatever. But that being said, there's a lot of disruptions to those information flows and to those attention flows. Like Joel said, there's sovereign authority, there's power knowledge, there's sort of the Overton window of allowable discourse that you can or cannot infiltrate any institution unless you have sort of like this blessing by the network forms of power, right? So that's my critique of what you were saying. I think that maybe there's a lot there to it, but whether we truly live in that reality, I think that we're being manipulated in ways that we don't are even consciously aware of. But that's
no, exactly. Joel is right. The thing was that is the authority now. So is it pure authority? That would be the case, which is independent of capital. Capital is so cheap; it can get capital whenever you like. So it's pure authority. Yes, it is. But the reason why we use the word attentionalism is because attention can be measured. So you build algorithms on attention. This is a consequence of a society completely ruled by smarter and smarter and better algorithms.
So there's no qualitative attention. There's just quantitative attention. Is that what you're saying?
we try to quantify it so we can compare it, but it is qualitative. Yeah.
And another,
You can't build algorithms that can exhaust it. Then there must always be an excess that no algorithm.
The
can...
creation of that would then like distort what you're saying, like in the form of like the qualities, right? Because like it's not like
we built an algorithm.
No
the algorithm's called capitalism.
You could be paying bad attention
Doesn't
to
work.
something that you don't actually like. Like, for instance, this happens to me all the time with my
Oh
fucking
God,
YouTube
does it ever?
algorithm.
Logo.
Like on my YouTube
Yeah.
algorithm, you watch some fucking garbage or whatever that's on there, and then like you're stuck with these like the worst accounts on your homepage because you open.
Well,
up a
you
new
speak
YouTube
for
thing.
yourself, Logo. I don't do that.
No, I'm saying this. It just happens though. I don't think any like
is true.
you're telling me.
Oh,
you never had-
algorithms will get much smarter than that. Come on, it's much easier to build algorithms.
But
I don't
there's
know,
a
I'm
limit
more
to their
skeptical.
smartness. I think there's a hard limit, in my opinion, as a tech skeptic. I think there's a hard limit to their algorithm. But Paul Town, you were saying.
I was going to say another core distinction now for attentionalism and that sort of thing is that essentially prior to, once again, I'm going to harp on the psychic detaching from the umbilical cord of the physical, is that so essentially, just say you were some artist in the past where you're trying to get into some scene or whatever. You have to be in like New York City, or you have to be in France, or you have to be somewhere else.
It was
Sweden or something.
Yeah, I went from London to France. Yeah.
So whereas with now the information is abstracted and it's been digitized where it can be sent over, regardless of geography. You can, for like what we're doing right now, you can form a community and discuss and interact with people in certain, genres or whatever you're doing. That's another form of where the resource flows are more decentralized. The phenomena that results from that, the cultures that come up in cities, the cultures that come up in certain areas, because in the past the psychic had an umbilical cord to the physical, are not there anymore. Now it's different. Now we're not meeting in a physical city, we're meeting in a digital city.
But at the same time, I mean, we are being manipulated in a variety of degrees. I mean, for example, I know he was found guilty, the Chauvin guy, but I mean, look at like George Floyd. I mean, the fucking digital statues of like the hologram of to making a world tour.
There's still manipulation, but it's different in that the primary world is now psychic. It's now digital, and the physical is secondary to the psychic. Where up until the internet, that wasn't the case.
I agree strongly. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So then, what would the future look like for like? So let's say we've got these like sort of digital nomads, the creative class. They've got accumulated capitals, and it's like preserved in like a cryptocurrency or whatever. So
or good boy points or whatever.
Around. Yeah. However you want to put it. So like what ultimately would be like a kind of like world changing project? We're saying
so essentially what's going to
tribalism, and then
so essentially what you got
is like streamer house.
But also I would add hold on. I would add one
I'd love to live in a streamer house, by the way, with all of you.
Yes, same here. I would add with an organic garden. I would add one more thing. The title of this episode that some people here have said, "Oh, this is murky. What does this even mean?" Individualism versus the masses. So when we're talking about the masses here, what's going to happen to them? What is going to happen to the people who
and that's essentially
the Morlocks or whatever?
What essentially happens is, like I said, because you don't get the intellectuals having to be in a city to interact with each other, that sort of thing. You don't have the the upper crust or the netizens or whatever having to be physically linked up. You remove a lot of incentive for the lower class or the lower caste to have a good quality of life, because you don't need them as much. You just need them for bare minimum. You need the people who are growing food. You need the people, that sort of thing. You don't need them to be well off.
But Paul, this is the point that I was arguing with before is that like in a humanist culture, they were already not communicating, like they communicated through literature and like letters.
But there was an entropy that's been almost completely removed, and as the entropy gets removed, the basically the forces that the phenomenological, I can't say that word, but essentially the resulting symptoms like of functioning communities for people who are on the outs are pretty much removed. They're gradually removed at first.
My bet is that psychiatry will do the job for the elites. So sedation.
There's like one massive spatter in the works for all of this, though.
Keep them away and put them to sleep.
There's one massive spatter in the works for all of this, which is why I emphasize authority. Which is, how does the techno-industrial system actually work? It increases in complexity, and this means that ultimately to control it, you need larger and larger apparatuses of control. And so this is why all of the great technological innovation that America has
It's
achieved
synthetic.
since
That's the
World
thing.
War II. No. Listen to what I'm going to say. It all comes out of the American security apparatus because they're able to leverage geographical control of basically the whole Earth, or like a very significant portion of it, to pool all of like control of like trade, resources, like billions of individual people, and leverage control of all of that to funnel into a kind of technocratic elite that are able to preside over all of this technological development. And if you don't, and if someone's doing that, you can't outcompete it. They're going to be able to build like advanced robotics, advanced weapons, advanced biotechnology.
Yeah.
They're the ones who built the fucking internet in the first place.
Yeah,
that you're jacking
yeah.
off over.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
And they're going. You're not going to like this new class that you're talking about is just like it's not really what's going to be in charge. What's going to be in charge is who's actually attaining status and authority.
But why do they want to be in charge
within this technocracy?
Why do these people? Why do these people who have abstracted wealth who can travel? Why do they want to be in charge of?
It wouldn't be, but they wouldn't be in charge of.
Joel,
they're going to get dominated by the ones who do want to be in charge and do preside over this techno-industrial system. And so there is no exit. Like there's not going to be this like ANCAP fantasy that you're jacking off.
No,
to.
it's not that, because essentially what happens is, as it gets as resources get abstracted and that sort of thing.
Resources aren't being abstracted.
Yes,
Ownership
they have
is
been
being
abstracted.
abstracted.
Crypto is pretty
Resources still exist in reality. You're just like you're fucking delusional, man. Like material reality
yeah,
exists.
that's the thing. That's the thing. I'm trading.
I'm with you
resources
totally
for
on this
physical
one.
resources.
That is, you just described two of the three in autocracies. You just described two of the three. The imaginary one of the real one, but you got the symbolic one left. Those are the guys who then dictate the narrative to fit in with that super class that we're talking about.
Right.
Yeah, there we go. That's the class that's interesting, right?
And the military industry will still be engineers and not bureaucrats, while the bureaucrats take over the rest.
A state still needs its own storytellers, right? It needs the official storytellers to tell the official story, to coordinate the actions and the beliefs of all the people, like the masses, not the shamans, not the people who are going to leave their
but that's the thing, is the shaman, they don't need, they're not seeking that.
Exactly,
but
they're not, but that's uninteresting.
But what's going to happen
because
is picture the CEO of Walmart, and then picture all the managers of Walmart. The CEO is the person making the most money. They're also the person not having to deal with the proles. They're not the person. The same time, they're not the.
Yeah, they're irrelevant. They're irrelevant.
Guys, I'm an old man in the old world, and I'm going to go to bed.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for talking.
Yeah, pleasure. Love you guys to bits, and I'm glad that I finally got around to telling porn Joel that I agreed with him at the end. Right?
Alexander, thank you so much for coming in, brother.
This is always a blast every time you come
pleasure.
on.
I wave hi to the Russians from my window. Don't worry about it. Yeah, I will.
And please subscribe to Alexander Bard if you had not done so already. Twitter.com/Bardissimo. Please buy Alexander's book, the Netocracy Trilogy.
You don't need to advertise that. I'm fine.
He's marketing, okay? It's authentic.
Okay.
Yes.
But
big love.
Yes.
Thank you so much, my friend. This has been amazing.
Yes.
And
Alexander, you're going to be at the National Arts Club pretty soon as well in May. You're going to be doing an event there with us.
Oh, right. I'd love to. Yeah, I'm around.
Excellent. All right. Take care, everybody. Well, no, not everybody. Take care, Alexander.
Everybody log off now.
Old worldwide sound.
Well, we still have some fighting to do. So
yes, we do. And once again, everybody, please subscribe to the stream right now. YouTube, DLive, Twitch. We are all over the place, and we are growing strong thanks to your help. Patreon.com/Break the Rules is where you go to become a patron. $20 patronage. No, $5 patronage first. That's going to make you a percolator on our Discord. Top secret hidden areas within our Discord with a lot of goodies in there for all you special people.
High impact grooming.
Yes, high impact grooming. And you will also be able to post in btr-chat images like we had Forever Young, one of our great patrons. He was posting images of Sonic and Shadow if they were like real hedgehogs. If somebody just like took them, chopped their arms off, and just like combined them together, turning them into regular hedgehogs.
Their arms are blue.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so $20 patronage is going to get you my father's very beautiful magnets. Here you can see the magnets on the screen. But you know what? I always show off these images so that the people who are watching the stream see it, but not the people who are actually part of this whole thing. So let me actually go in here, browse, go into the wooden magnet section, and open this up so everybody here gets to actually see what all of this is. My father is a brilliant artist, and he's been creating these magnets, and right now he is working. No, I believe he's already finished the definitely legit magnet, and I'm gonna see if I can actually find it and show it off to y'all in a bit. But these are some of the other magnets that he created, and of course you are going to get, for a $30 patronage, you are going to get Giovanni Panicciotti's beautiful prints. Here you can actually, now everybody,
Not Feel One No GF Series 1 of 5 prints.
that's right, now everybody could actually see it in action here. So first let's scroll up. So here are the magnets, you can see the quality here, and here are the prints. Look at them go. This is Gio working on the prints, making it happen like all the live long day. Gio's incredible. I love you, Gio. And here we go. These are the prints. This is what they look like. Now, $50 patrons are going to get all of that. We just got a $50 patron yesterday. New $50 patron, 888. Dog bless you, 888. Thank you so much for becoming a patron. And what $50 patrons are going to get is all of the above, plus they're going to get another beautiful painting, this time from Gio, in the Bob Ross style. They are going to get a custom wooden magnet, whatever they want to be on the magnet. My father is going to create that magnet. And they're also going to get the beautiful figures from the that Warhammer, I said it right this time, Warhammer series that Jules P. Hamilton lovingly painted. And I believe that is it for now, but we are having so many more things. Oh, I forgot to show one more thing. If you become a patron, you are also going to get, regardless of which tier, you are also going to get audio-only content, not only, but audio plus content. So we are going to take all the streams, turn them into audio in your own private RSS feed within Patreon, and you're going to be the very first ones to get the audio version, so you can listen to it on the go without having to look at us in the flesh. So that is what you get as a patron. And lastly, I gotta shill the things that we are doing next week. This is extremely important, because here's what's crack-a-lackin'. So, not next week. What am I talking about? This week. This week, we are going to have a doozy. We are going to have Argue My Position, another one where it's going to be a reverse debate, and we have over here our great friend Armand. He is there. He is arguing against democracy, even though he's for it. And we are searching for somebody, some motherfucker, some brave motherfucker who is against a democracy in real life, but he's going to argue for democracy. This is what the Pokemon ghost in the background is supposed to symbolize. So I want to hear from all of you. Write in the comments. Write in, message me on Twitter. Write in Twitter. Who do you want to see facing off in this reverse debate? So that is only the first one. Number 2, what we have is the psychedelic stream, and this one is going to be with Owen Cyclops and Daniel Pinchbeck. They are going at it, the psychedelic stream. This, by the way, is Electric Health. This is one of the pictures that I created as an NFT early on. But that is not all, ladies and gentlemen. Not only do you get all of that coming to you, but you are also going to have for the Sunday, I am going to be doing on my own YouTube channel my art stream, and this is where I draw my own NFTs, and this is going to be with Aiden Paladin and Maida Nomad wearing some really handsome glasses over here from Gurren Lagann. So be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel as well. Set a reminder for all of these, and if you think I'm done, I am not done, not by a long shot. No, actually I am by a long shot, because this is the last one. We are going to have Bimbo Ubermensch. Ubermensch, she is coming in. She is coming in next Tuesday, so 1 week from now exactly.
How much is Gio going to simp on that one? I'll be tuning in.
If she wasn't married, if only.
Yeah, so this is what you have to look forward to. By the way, where is she? Where is she from? I actually don't know as much.
She
about
lives
her.
in Canada. She's from the States. Yeah.
Interesting.
Lives in Winnipeg, I think. Yeah.
So this is what we have, and lastly, go and subscribe to our audio. I'm not gonna bother you with the content. I'm just gonna put them in the chat. But basically, Apple Podcast, Spotify, it's all in there. It's all in there.
So I think let's finish. What do you guys? We were talking about the abstraction of capital, but what do you think of just in general? It seems to be like the hottest topic. Like, what do you think of like the woke capital paradigm, and where is that going to go, and what will develop from it? I think that would be a good question for everybody.
More of the same, of all the same shit. We don't come up with anything new. This is all the same. It's all more of the same. We do the same. We keep doing the same thing. We just relaunch the same thing. It's all the same.
Oh shit.
Wow, that was fucking depressing.
I mean, do you feel otherwise? I mean, I
Yeah,
don't.
it makes it's basically just like exploiting people, and it's not going to fundamentally change. I mean, whatever they're saying is going to change, whatever the tone is, but it's not like they're just reacting to whatever they can,
But do you think
extract resources from.
Do you think that for somehow this sort of it came up last week, the sort of people talking about, what was it? People talking about androgyny and all that. Do you think that sort of the we're going to enter into a post-human subject where people will no longer have gender and we won't have any relations of that nature, and we will, like, almost in some ways triumph?
We're gonna just be talking
sexuality
about this for the next 50 fucking years, and it's gonna be really insufferable.
I think
Oh, maybe.
no, I think it's, once again, this is the same exact process is as the, like, the connection, like the physical economy is more subservient. You have more people who have more opportunities to basically extract resources without fitting into traditional roles. So, like, if you look at most tech people, they're not like, these aren't models. These are people who would be outcasts and losers in the past, but because they are essentially, they're tapped into the psychic economy, they're extracting resources that way, abstracted resources, their physical traits aren't playing into as much, and they're going to reproduce at a higher rate than they used to. And as the basically way to extract resources is more abstracted, because resources are more abstracted, the understanding of the physical, not for everybody, but for, in the beginning at least, as there's an influx of people from the psychic economy succeeding over people in the physical economy, you're going to have a whole new glut of people who kind of throw wisdom to the wayside, because there's so much excess that can be extracted. You can make a ton of mistakes and be wrong about a ton of stuff, but as long as you're right about your tech company winning, you'll be a millionaire. You know what I mean?
Realize, like, all the big tech companies were all, like, seeded by the U.S. security state with venture capitalists.
So true.
Were like organized by, like, CIA.
It doesn't change. That doesn't change who's benefiting from it.
Yeah, no, the same types of people are getting cultivated as assets.
It's a psychic dimorphism. It's the people who are basically, and you can look at this in.
But, like, look at how. You would probably think, right, that Notch would be a great example of this, right?
Right.
But look, what is he doing? What has he done?
And that's exactly what I'm saying. There's going to be a glut of people who they benefit with physical resources from tapping into the psychic economy, but they don't know what they're doing in the physical world, so they're just going to lose out eventually to people who know how to do both.
Well, but do you think, like, the project then of, like, if you look at the history of, like, the tech companies being seeded, but, like, basically using DARPA technology and so forth, do you think that the possibilities of, like, I don't know, Mold Buggy and Peter Thiel counter elites, like, that's pretty much not going to happen? Because what if, like, Notch were to, like, fund a bunch of shit posters like us and, like, really fuck shit up culture?
Well, I can tell you Notch. Wait. I can tell you
Very
Notch
good.
already turned down funding World Peace Season 2. So
Well,
I'm not kidding about that.
Oh, man.
If you're gonna see anything like that, like some sort of weird, like, seasteading, like, breakaway society, it's like gonna be in, like, Taiwan. Like, that's gonna be, like, the last ditch effort to, like, hold on to some of our, like, scattered empire, right? Like, that's the way it'll be pitched. I mean, do you guys remember there was, like, the Instagram community in, like, Nicaragua or something? It was like, it's on a holy lake, and, like, look, they got our food for us, and we're all, like, influencers.
Oh, that one they're all memeing on without Nicaraguans.
Yeah, and they're like, oh wow, like, yeah, this is just imperialism. It's like, yeah, that's like the new form of, that's like going to be the new woke thing, like,
influencers are going to have woke
like,
imperialism.
They'll be like little influencer pods that you could, like, it's sort of like how Airbnb was predated by like couch surfing and things like this. That a lot of, like, this sort of but like, ultimately, look at, like, who makes up this bohemian class. Like, for the most part, it's like the children of privilege, you could say, like the upper middle class. And the part of the reason why they're even capable of, like, building a large audience and stuff like that is just from all of the accumulated, like, cultural and human capital and the networks that they were born into. So,
I mean, look at Chapo, for instance. That's a good
exactly.
example,
No,
right?
like, and they like, a lot of these people aren't even aware of, like, being able to look at their own biographies in this way, because, like, everyone's socialized to think of themselves still as, like, challenging some sort of authority.
Oh, look what happened last week with oh God, the comedian. He's a great guy. He follows me too. Sean McCarthy. going against fucking Matt Crumpler. I mean, look what happened with that. I mean, that's, hilarious, right? But I think the you can look at someone like Crumps and be like, oh, he's not aware that literally his father's a defense contractor that's murked people in the Middle East. It's like he's talking about fucking jeu de sens and Lacanian Marxism.
Also, we are going to have a Sean McCarthy on Tuesday, June 15th.
Yeah,
so
amazing. But look at that example. I think you could look at it and say that there's a purposeful blindness, but I think that blindness is almost instinctual in some ways, because when you are stuck in the sort of art world theory cell circles, then it becomes very easy to divorce yourself from the material conditions that have given you this sort of prestige to begin with, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I guess, but I mean, with the Crumps thing,
go ahead.
How many people who are participating in this circle on Twitter are real, aren't from what does Crumps do? I didn't understand. I understand, for example, Logo and Crumps have a really, really long history of flaming each other.
Yeah,
his account exists as a reply guy to mine. I mean,
yeah. What was the originally
it was
what
the
was his
incel.
original name?
Yeah, it was the
No. But his name before he was Crumps, I can't even remember it anymore.
I don't either. But yeah, that's how he
Yeah,
got.
DJ something, but
oh yeah, DJ. I knew
DJ Tomahawk Missile.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, with the Crumps thing, that was I don't really understand the the ire that he got from that but yeah, I mean, I think, just to abbreviate my point, I've been thinking recently, I don't see that what there is in much besides third world politics, what besides that is going to change, what is the fate of the third world, and how it is because the global economy hasn't fully developed. You can't
well, not just
Amazon.
the third world though, but what about the world here, which I know first world, second world?
No, but the thing is, people don't give a fuck about the third world anymore. Nobody.
No, I agree that they don't give a fuck, but I'm saying okay, if there's going to be there is going to be continued investment and expansion of industry and infrastructure over the next X number of years, and that will increase the power of the third world, and that's the major, I think, motivating political force that's going to be happening over the next
no, but the thing
years.
is that the people Chapo is a great example. I remember they did this Netflix bullshit hit piece. It was about the alt-right back in the day, and they were talking about how at the very end they interviewed Matt Christman, and he said that we're either going to have universal redistribution when the environment fucks up, or there's people that are going to choose solidarity with everybody, or they're going to choose genocide by closing the borders, those alt-right people. But then I'm thinking this fantasy of a global redistributive network. I mean, at the end of the day, every single power throughout human history chose quote unquote genocide, meaning the West is going to say, fuck you, we got mine. I mean, everyone has that instinctive impulse to some degree, but it's just whether the West is going to have that amount or degree of power economically to say, fuck you, got mine. I mean, who knows, right? Who knows the things.
I think we've been saying, fuck you, got mine for our own citizenry.
To our own citizenry. And that's the beauty of it, because Matt Christman doesn't realize that even to the people that are being dicked over by the empire. I mean, we've been, like you said, we've said, fuck you, got mine forever. I mean, why do you think that when... Anyways, sorry, I'm just ranting right now.
Well, it depends on how many people we're talking here, because sure, you could say a lot of people do say, fuck you, got mine. I'm not going to say that everybody in the establishment is necessarily going to be like that. Again, I'm not going to paint a black and white picture here.
I honestly think that I don't care if that's what their sentiments or their proposed sentiments about themselves are, but that's how it works, fundamentally. even unconsciously. So I prefer it when people are just adamantly saying like,
but
openly,
even
yeah,
unconsciously,
I believe fuck you, got
people
mine,
still
but...
do. People still. Well, I'm not gonna say do. If we're talking historically here, people did acts of heroism. Like I love
like
to.
Dale Carnegie and the Rockefeller Foundation.
No, I'm talking more.
Someone's
like,
got to run shit, and like in order to run shit, you have to control shit. Otherwise, you're not running it. And so to control shit, you have to say "fuck you, I'm in charge. This is my shit." Like, get in line, peasant. And that's just it. That's just how shit works.
But within that framework,
like, that's
what
not
do they end up
inherently
doing?
bad either. It's just the people that are doing, in my opinion, they're fucking bugmen. And so it's like,
yeah, but bugmen versus, let's say, warlords, that would just I don't know. My example here
is there no? But that's the thing, Lev. Is there even a Kshatriya class anymore? Like,
the thing is, that's
Kshatriya,
what we all do that with the third world right now. Like we all do. It's constantly. Oh, I'm going to keep this for myself and not give it to somebody else. I mean, it's not.
Right.
That's not a horrible thing. It's just, I think I can use these resources better. Or I don't feel the need to,
Well,
right now there's some starving kid in Africa who could very easily, I could like support for the rest of my life, but I'm not going to do that. And it's like, that is, it's empathy.
It's actually kind of difficult to support them. Like, you don't actually have the ability personally to support anyone in Africa. Like,
I do.
How?
The abstract resources, I can send money to an NGO, or I can
but that's not you. Like, so
I could go fly out.
You could give money to an NGO that'll mostly steal most of it to pay a bunch of like Westerners to administer helping people in the third world, but not really.
There is something help, but I'm not doing it. Or I could just go help the lady down the street.
Not even fly out. There is a program website. I don't remember what it's called right now, but I remember what it used to do is you were able to send money to particular families who need money to start up like a new farming operation or something like that.
Yeah, there's always going to be Christian Children's Fund or whatever, but...
No, I'm not talking about that, G. I'm talking specifically about the family, where you get to know these are the family people, they get direct communication with you, and
you get the sentiment out of it. Like, you want to have their biographies. Yeah, you want to get those pictures. You want to look at them. You want to feel those feelings when
it's
you
just a sliding. It's just a sliding scale. It's just a sliding scale of not helping.
It's
people.
true though, and no, but it is a sliding scale. But I think both of you are correct. But at the same time, I mean, the fact that we can It came up recently. I remember this. They were talking. It was a podcast with Delicious Tacos about sex tourism and how, like, you have shows like 90 Day Fiance where it's like we're sort of strip mining the erotic renaissance from the third world and how that's going to have implications for the future. I mean, if we truly live in some kind of like post-national world conglomeration, then it's like people will start to say like, why can't I like go and bang the Philippines and like go at him?
Imagine, by the way,
right? But that being said, there when it comes to what the realization is, okay, yes, you're lifting like one mail order bride out of poverty, but then that has so many other implications for how you approach your own sort of position in the world and identity, and really whether it's like, you could take these people out and you can use them, and it's almost like this sexual form of bartering. But then at the same time, the counter argument that it's like, well, white women in the West, they're fucking frigid and they're feminists and they're ugly. So it's like, why can't I go over there and just basically, bang the Philippines, right? I mean, when you look at it, even something so private and intimate as sexual dynamics is being subject to these flows of capital.
But who actually does that? Usually it's like boomers that have had like a divorce and they're like lowering the difficulty setting.
Well,
these are like the ideal people.
Imagine if
they have their accumulated capital in crypto. They're out in the third world. They're like, they're trying to, they're trying not to have Uncle Sam see the ages on those girls.
Well, let's go back in time. Hold on. Let's go back in time and imagine like an MTV.
Well, I mean, Joel in Australia, in Bali, you go to Bali.
Yes.
Like a lot of old boomers go to Bali.
Before Bali, imagine we go back in time.
In Canada, we go to the Philippines.
Well, I was just about to say, imagine we go back in time and we have like an MTV show hosted by Matt Forney called "Do the Philippines."
That's what it was like.
Flew back in the
that's what it was like, dude. Like that's really what like 2000s culture was like. Like Girls Gone Wild. There was like that. Like that's one thing that has actually changed a lot. I think is like we were like extremely proud and celebratory of like teen and child sexuality in the 90s and the 2000s in ways that we aren't even now, but people are more obsessed with it now in a way because it's
they're obsessed with it in a different way in terms of an identity issue, not like a celebration of ecstasy, right?
No, but I guess you could put it that way. I mean, I'm more cynical and I don't think it was like ever like it's like arbitrary whether or not what the intentions were behind it or whatever. Like,
Right.
obviously all this fucked up shit that everyone's like, oh wow, our world's run by fucked up shit. Obviously it was in full swing at the time, right? Like, this is like Dan
Right.
Schneider with all the Nickelodeon girls, etc.
Yeah.
Like, what people are really mad about in a way is that they can no longer like look away from the secondary aspects of those, or like the consequences of like the economy. Like, we had like a nice like Faustian devil's bargain where it was like, okay, we're gonna let all of these people be like hedonists and like libertines, etc. We just don't want to have to know about like all of that, and we're just gonna take like the good things you make. It's like, it's a part of the whole like using vices for virtues part of capitalism, like the sort of alchemical transformation of like evil into public good. That's like the ideology behind it in the first place.
And that's like the
like
basis
neoconservatism in a nutshell, really.
Yeah,
kind of. Yeah, no, the neocons really won. Like, this is like George Bush. He's back in the press now. Like, this is, if you want to like God, Falstaff was ahead of his time on this one, especially like that like the neocons really are like coming back, and like and like I was like half joking, but it's like what if we had just trusted Halliburton more? Like, what if like in the 2000s, like we were even more like pro nation building, etc. There wasn't any of what if we just fully invested in like the conservative empire? Like,
well, England invested into India, so
well, would we have what would we get? Like, would we have Instagram houses in Afghanistan? Like, what would we ultimately accomplish, even if like the greatest plans of our empire went according to their own plans?
But at the same time,
here's what we didn't do though. What it would have acquired, what it would have required, I think, is to have had people who are like American generals coming in there and acting like viceroys in Iraq, as opposed to giving control over to some of the tribes people who
the
would
Northern
be against,
Alliance or whoever
who would be against the other tribes people. You know, like, why not just run shit over there like England was doing?
Well, then you
India?
can't do crimes, because that's what ultimately the point of it is. Is again, is like the point of Afghanistan is to be this like legal gray zone in between, like where like we want to have these sorts of development zones, you could even call them, where like, because our intelligence economy, like the deep economy, is the drug war. Like we're just a drug trafficking empire. The British Empire, the American Empire, it's always been about drugs and drug trafficking from the beginning.
Also, like, there's also like sabotage of industry. So like the reason why we're in like Syria, for example, is just to like sabotage gas pipelines, sabotage a whole bunch of industrial projects that are against American geopolitical interests. They don't actually care about ruling Syria. That's too expensive and annoying. They just want to make it like impossible
uninhabitable.
For like
for no one.
Other people to like run shit through there, because then that would create like a counter.
We love anarchy.
We're
the anarchist empire.
But that's
like that's how shit works. Like, if you want to be like a dominant institution, you have to sabotage all competitors so that like you're the only game in town. That's just how shit works.
And this goes right back again to two things. It goes back and to Paul, what you're saying with Bataille. So waste and excess is actually necessary for the economy. This also goes back to Giorgio Agamben. This is the Homo Sacer. We need dead zones. The empire currently needs dead zones legally and strategically in order to do their bidding. So we need these chaotic sort of like, you get shipped off to a fucking black site. You're literally outside of the law, but you being outside of the law of the sovereign supports the law of the sovereign, because now the CIA, by torturing you in some facility in fucking Kandahar, that there's no legal repercussion, that supports the infrastructure of the legitimacy of the American empire itself. So in that sense, creating those positions of being totally outside of the law, abandoning these populations the way that, and of course, Giorgio Agamben, he was a rock star during the early 2000s because he talked about this with Guantanamo Bay. Guantanamo Bay is illegal, or Abu Ghraib, even better. We get to fucking put electrodes on their balls now because Abu Ghraib supports the whole system. So it's not this like British sovereign empire building. I'm not going to start here and listen to you badmouth. So the whole,
I'm half ironically posting that, by the way. Half ironically.
So the British Raj model, that is a model of a truly greater Faustian empire that actually cares about the culture that they're building. America does not fucking care about building some kind of Iraqi Raj where we get to send, some influence. We get to send whatever Instagram
But if
model
we leave
Trisha
Afghanistan,
Paytas.
then trannies are gonna be oppressed, dude. Like,
Yeah, I know.
yeah, we need
Literally,
Afghan children to chop their dicks off.
The
Yeah,
case of
yeah,
Puerto
David
Rico.
Frum said that. No, Max Booth said that the other day about how, don't we care about the girls being educated? in
Yeah, it's
Afghanistan?
all absurd though,
Yeah.
because if they actually cared about this, they'd be like, okay,
Right.
Puerto Rican statehood. Like we have all of these territories that are under
Exactly,
like American
yes.
hegemony that aren't counted as a part of America, even though we
Puerto
control
Rico
them.
is
So why isn't Samoa a
Yeah.
state? You know, like why? Like there's a bunch of things like this.
Yes, Puerto Rico and Samoa, they are again these homo sacer, abandoned to the law states of exception, because for example in the 70s, you know how we got atrazine? Because they fucking tested it on pregnant Puerto Rican women, and American corporations could go there because they knew that they were exempt, because they were sort of like, they were kind of American states but not really. I mean, this is the model of power that repeats itself, and only a decaying, crumbling empire can truly create these dead zones that is abandoned by the sovereign law in order to do their bidding. I mean, the whole war on drugs, I mean, soldiers guarding the poppy fields. I mean, wow, no fucking shit.
No, but it's like, it's like if we don't control and sell the drugs, someone else
then the
will.
Chinese will.
Well, actually,
Yeah, someone
ironically, is that the Islamic State that was in there, they had actually been they were eliminating
Yes.
the growing of opium, and they were eliminating the whole what do they call their pleasure boys over there? I forget. There's a word for it.
Bakabazi.
Yeah. They were
That was
eliminating
too
all
fast,
this.
Gio.
This is part of what was.
Shut up.
Very the terrorist mind.
But I'm saying this is part of what was providing legitimacy to like the radical Islamists in the first place, right? Is that they were eliminating
Yes.
these things in society that pretty much everyone there thought was bad, and was like leading
Right.
to like I mean, it is bad. It's bad to be
Yeah.
run by a bunch of pedophile heroin dealers. Like,
Yeah, no
so,
shit.
but we
Yeah.
went in. Not
But
to,
if
we
we
went in to
let
protect
the
them.
Chinese be the pedophile heroin dealers, then
No,
that
the
would be
Chinese,
responsible.
they have.
They would no.
Yeah.
The Chinese would try to like actually just like.
No,
like,
no,
just buy it all out.
I'm being a dick.
Oh no,
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 I
but
know,
I'm
know.
saying
Yeah.
like no, like the problem, like we created like possibly the worst form of imperialism.
Yes, I
Yeah, yeah.
have. Yes.
It's like the most.
It really is grotesque. Yeah.
Now this
super
is not going to be a good counter argument to what you're saying, but I did want to offer this one bit, which I'm curious what you think about.
I mean, death in excess really is running the.
Hold on, you gotta let me
economy
finish.
right now.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, the abortions, the people on drugs, the
Yes.
people that had their livelihoods offshored. I mean, come on.
Okay,
I mean,
this is
satanic. It's satanic energy.
I mean,
man.
we just learned from Nancy Pelosi that George Floyd sacrificed himself to like rejuvenate national vibes or something.
Oh,
See,
man.
no, but see, Logo, we talked about this a year ago, where we said that the American the American mythos of like the self-created person, and that sort of like that Americana, that which is by and large related to kitsch. If you read the book by Deculturation by
just like
Butch Bornstein, right?
Yeah,
Like,
easy.
Well, I want to get to Logo's
because now like it's sort of like this retrograde, like now the left, like Nancy Pelosi can say that, you know, actually the real Americana kitsch is like, you know, George Floyd sacrificing himself on the altar of wokeness, right? Because he had to die for our sins now. So, and not just George Floyd, I'm not singling it out because it's currently in the news as you're watching this broadcast,
Yes.
but it's the sort of territorialization of that fundamental American mythos that both the right and the left, they both managed to like somehow slough off a piece of for themselves. And so this whole like Americanist approach to like, well, you know, actually the real America is like the yeoman farmer. Well, then the Hamiltonians, it's like, no, it's not the yeoman farmer, it's the fucking industrialist. And then other people will say that, no, actually, you know, it's the trans women of color who really founded America because
They're the real
of
Americans,
the Iroquois.
yeah.
The Iroquois that helped found the American Constitution, they had some of them who are trans. So actually, trans women of color founded America. Did you know that? If you don't agree with that, then history majors on Twitter that come in and they say, well, I have a history degree and I know that trans women of color founded America. So sorry, I'm fucking.
I want to bring up a counterpoint,
Oh my
which
God.
is about you were on a roll, Gio. I want to bring up a counterpoint.
I've been looking forward so much to this stream. I'm
Yes.
just so pumped
No,
up. I'm jiggling right now.
It's
if
the
you
Geo
can't tell.
show.
This
Geo
I'm jiggling right now.
You break the geo.
Pretty soon we're gonna see Gio twerking as well. Like,
Oh,
how much,
God.
I know, how
Oh.
much
Yeah.
money would it cost? Like, how much-
Alexander Bard will be back for that.
I woke up. I had to come back in for the intellectual discussion.
Wait, how much super chats would it take for Geo to twerk? Geo, you tell us.
Alexander
Not
Bard has
enough.
just given us a donation of 500 euro.
I've just
Geo-
been contacted by an
Advertising
an
works,
Prince.
boys. Advertising works.
All right, now I gotta get to my counter argument, which has constantly been, not besmirched, which has constantly been interrupted by you crazy motherfucker. So now I'm gonna get to my counter
Coitus
argument finally.
interruptus. Discourse
I'm gonna get
interruptus.
to it right now, and it's not a big counter argument. It's basically we still have in America, for example, John McCain's son went into the military. Now I haven't looked into it that much, but just
He has
having,
a son?
Yeah, he has a son, and his son.
I
went
thought
to,
it was just Megan. I thought that
No.
did Megan turn trans?
Hold on. Let me actually make sure. Hold on. Yeah, John McCain.
Megan isn't that bad looking. She's a total ghoul, but in my opinion, I don't know. It's kind of she makes it work.
Yeah, John.
Go.
Yeah, John.
So he's in the army.
Yeah.
Then what? What about that?
Okay, the only reason why I'm bringing that up, or bringing up, let's say, somebody like George S. I can't say the name correctly. You know, the George Bush Sr., who also went to the army.
HW.
HW. Thank
Herbert
you.
Walker.
Yes. So, I still think that there may be a tiny amount of honor in that. At least a tiny amount
What's
of
the
honor.
honor of joining the modern military, though? Please tell me.
Yeah, that's true.
No, you're still
Because it's
putting
all
your
about
life.
like self-actualizing as a woman. Like you can achieve your dreams in the U.S. military.
I
You
feel,
can-
Oh,
I
wait.
feel like
Let's,
that's
hold on. Let's
you-
rewind a
It's like
bit.
a yoga retreat,
Let's
but like
rewind
you
a bit.
know,
We're not talking
for
about
like
the
the last
military
3
right
years.
now.
People.
Let's rewind a bit. We're not talking about the military right now. We're talking about whenever John McCain's son went there. Let me actually
Yeah,
figure this out. Jack
feel-
McCain. That's his
Oh yeah,
name.
he's doing shitloads of drugs and sitting in some Vietnamese
I
jungle.
feel like
Yeah,
that
John
sort of,
McCain
that
was
sort of
like-
stuff is similar with like was it Prince Harry or whatever who joined the Air Force?
Yeah.
It's almost it's like the old guard trying to like grasp onto like signifiers of like
They're actually
Being
jealous
ability.
because they want to have like that, like they think that like he wants to be.
Class, yeah.
Okay, here it
Yeah.
says.
it's
Jack
it's
McCain.
they're tryhards, yeah.
Jack McCain IV attended and graduated from the United States Naval Academy in 2009, the fourth-generation John McCain to do so. He became a naval aviator like his father and grandfather, including flying helicopters during the war in Afghanistan. Now, okay, say what you will about whatever goes on behind the scenes, drugs and stuff like that. Flying a fucking helicopter, I don't think that's the easiest thing in the world. There's risk
It's
involved.
not that
there.
hard.
Yeah, the thing is, it's
Have
not,
you
it's
flown
not
the
like
helicopter
it's not like-
logo? Hold on.
I mean, I
Okay.
could go get a license. I could go get
it's
take
not
classes.
not-
It's
it's
All right,
not
that's
that
the
hard,
that's the
it's
new
just
goal. We
not-
gotta make sure.
it's
Logo
more
goes through.
it's symbolic. It's like a symbolic thing that's kind of like not
Yeah.
worth it at this point. It's like people who like buy Supreme clothes to try to look cool. It's like, yeah, maybe that was cool in like 2011 or something.
I'm gonna go down
but
to
now
my
it's
local
just,
like.
yeah,
I'm
it's
gonna
just
to my
like
local television newscast, and I'm gonna salute the helicopter there to do like the evening traffic.
yeah,
That's
it's like
America.
it's like the
Yeah.
people who are like it's
Thank
like
you for your
chasing after-
service.
it's like chasing after status indicators that are kind of decrepit at this point. If that makes sense.
It's true
You're
because
basically talking about the hereditary, like there's a remnant of a hereditary aristocracy who
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
like went into like they go to the military. But guess what? The ones who went into the military, those weren't even the upper crust of the hereditary aristocracy.
no, they were
Are
like
you kidding me?
grunts,
You
yeah.
you got to talk to the old Yaleys. You need to like see some of these old like the old American aristocracy. That shit's still around. All those kids, they just they born with foundations in their name. They go to school. They get very high up at various like
yeah,
like
they do
venture
different
cap-
stuff. Yeah.
They do
Yeah.
venture capitalism. They do whatever. Like this is
Well,
that whole
this-
world still exists.
And I love
Like,
Will's comment, by the way. Will M said, Bill Burr can fly a helicopter, so how hard can it be?
Oh, that's
True.
true.
Yeah.
But I think that Vola was right in the metaphysics of war, and that modern warfare was so fundamentally
yeah, it's
transformed
different.
from its root. It's
Junger
spiritual.
said the same thing, right? Like
Yes,
all these
yeah.
wars are just
Yeah.
machinery. Like, and people were saying this in the 19th century too. Like, mechanized death. Like that's what all it is.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to talk about like when did war, like these sorts of like first like democratic wars, you could even say like the last like war in that sense was in some ways the Civil War in America. But even that is like where it like that's like where the like we had World War I in America, like trench warfare, all this sorts of like fucking brutal shit. Like the bullets they shot in those days were going much slower and they were much heavier and much bigger, so they would just blow
Even
your
the
fucking
trench
limbs
trench
apart.
life itself was like literally a hell on earth.
Yeah, and I would say that's not to say that people who join the military or something
No,
are
they're
inherently
cuts
bad.
and whatever.
There's like some. It's getting harder and harder at this point to say this, but up until recently, and still to some extent now, there's some like sincerity and like willing to sacrifice yourself that's admirable in that, like
Yeah,
for people
of
who are
course.
ignorant
Yeah, of
to
course.
the
The
reality.
real
of it.
tragedy is like how that is warped towards, and like this is the fucked up thing, right? I went home and there's this kid that I knew like growing up and stuff. He went into like the army. His whole family's like army type family.
Oh, you
He was
tweeted
all
this,
into it. Yeah. And he was just like, he's like fucking got PTSD. He's all fucking broken up because he was over there like special forces, and what they were really like, you know, he was the one having to deal with like the fucking Taliban like heroin operations and things like this. They were literally like guarding poppy fields at various points, and like they just like had like were like, you know, they're like fire on that convoy or whatever, and they find out later that they like shot up a bunch of children and things like this.
Yeah.
And it's like that's the honor of going into the military. Like a lot of the like, you know, the upper crust people, they can still hold on to this notion of like, oh, what I'm doing is really honorable, when you have like Pete Buttigieg going in, and what he's really doing is he's just talking to local industrialists, and they're trying to like, you know, being like, oh, how can we get some of your like rare products here, like, and we'll sell them to American restaurants and things like this, and where this is us helping the local economy. You can feel really good about yourself to a degree if that's your job, but if your job is to just be the guy holding the gun, like guarding the poppy fields, like that eventually is going to impress itself upon your psychology. Like you can't just like not, you're like, you're gonna go like,
yeah, you have to either embrace it and be like become like a mercenary, or like you get wrecked by it and like, what did I do?
But you've made an important
you embrace
point here.
the heart of darkness.
We made an important point here about the psychology of these soldiers, because what that says about them, that they, once they actually find out that it was a bunch of kids, you know, they don't cheer and high five each other. They get upset, and
some of them do.
No,
well,
some of them. There was this
documentary. Like, how many?
Those are the ones who are the lifers. Those are the ones who are
like
they're not even
Blackwater people.
Yeah, those are the people who are like this is really just like a training zone to differentiate the people who are going to get fucked up, going to the PTSD. Now they're going to go home.
People who actually enjoy it and are.
It's even more like this. Now they're going to go home and they're going to be the subjects of all these MDMA and DMT trials. Like we're doing all this, like the veterans are also like a useful resource for us to do like psychological fucking experiments,
like
on.
The prisons and like the insane asylums. Yeah,
we've been doing that for forever. And then in the worst, like we found ways to like utilize all of the blowback here. So you got the broken psyches, you send them home, you can have them rehabbed, and at the same time you're fucking doing MK Ultra experiments on them. Okay, what about the ones who like go full fucking heart of darkness mode and they embrace it? Well, guess what? We got some.
We have jobs for you.
We got some jobs for you too, buddy.
Yeah, you got to become police officers. Like there was this documentary by Michael Herr, who wrote the book Dispatches about the Vietnam War, and it's called The Act of Kill. No, First Kill. Sorry, First Kill. The Act of Killing was the one in Cambodia. And one soldier said there was a percentage, most of them, who didn't like it, but like they were terrified of it. There was a percentage that had that sort of like feeling, that instinctual impulse, but they tried to hide it. Then there was a few that was like literally taking trophies by cutting people's heads off and like putting them on stakes, right? Like, I mean, the thing is with war is that the ritualistic aspect of it, and I think figures like Younger and Evola, they saw this too, is that ritualistic spiritual comportment of the action of war itself, that is still present in society, but it's just it's because
it's so asymmetrical. Like the real glory of it comes like, you know, you read the Iliad and the Odyssey, and it's like there was a time when war was like kind of a game still. It's still kind of like a sport.
It was a ritualized expression.
It was a ritualized expression. Yeah. And that's like where our sports come from. That's why the real honorable thing here is not even the soldiers, but like we've truly expend that upon like sports celebrities, because they are the ones who actually are going to war in like the more higher like ritualistic sense.
This is why to me professional wrestling is the most real sport. But that being said, I think that the mythology, you laugh, but I'll make a whole book about this. The mythology of
Please don't.
Oh, come on, Joel.
I'd read it, Gio.
I
mean, honestly, Gio, like you should have been making like some of these fucking like WWE like esoteric readings of YouTube things a long time ago, because people have already jumped in on that, and like you could have done it. Could have been you.
I could have been like meme analysis. I missed the boat. I can't believe it.
Well, I meant more like there's like what's his name, like Eye Patch Wolf or whatever is a guy.
I could have been that guy. Damn.
Yeah, you could have been that guy.
Yeah. Well, but it's true. But the thing is that's sort of the mythology of warfare itself. It's sort of still there, but become progressively weakened and instantiated in like pure bullshit, global homo bullshit. Because
yeah, it's more war now is more basically just like superpowers.
we're fighting for democracy.
No, it's like superpowers stomping out some like potential competitor
Evil,
in the future.
It's more like a police.
before they can do
anything. It's more like joining the modern police force.
Yeah,
honestly.
it's basically just like
There is
an
still-
exterminator going through.
The only like cool
bugs.
war that's left seems to be if you're one of these like guerrilla fighters that are fighting like an occupying.
Yeah, Joel says he
force.
supports
Yeah.
ISIS, and you should join.
There
them.
is still
Well,
one problem.
No, but I'm saying like say for example like like Australia was invaded by some like futuristic Chinese like occupying force in 20 years, and I could be some like bush dwelling like
Neo-Sealist
guerrilla
scout.
You're imagining
Yeah.
yourself like in like Chechnya as like
Or
one
it's-
of the
or it's
Green
like
Berets
inter-
on
It
the-
definitely has like a kind of vibe that like just being some
tribal
like
terror wave.
boots on the
of-
ground in Afghanistan
Yeah.
just doesn't have
Yeah, or it's
No,
like
exactly.
intra
That's-
gang warfare in like
that
the inner
is-
cities.
yeah,
like
exactly.
that's actual war. 'Cause it's
Oh,
like-
there was this
yeah.
great book.
Protests also simulate
Yeah.
this for people.
Yes. There was a great book by again by Bots Bordstein called, I think it was called ISIS and Italian Futurism, where he talks about this sort of like aesthetic romanticism of this before the term was even around of terror wave, where you have ISIS acting this like aesthetics of force and power the way that the Italian futurist envisioned it. And in some ways, why do you think the terror wave aesthetic is such a romanticized ideal? Because it is taking the more ancient model of warfare in terms of like a people that is fighting for their identity and fighting for their place and their ethnicity and their sense of self in the world, and against an omnipotent, like decentralized force of power. And so that is why I feel that is a more ostensibly authentic expression of what warfare used to be. Nowadays, I mean, you talk like, I know, for example, Zizek, he has this criticism of Deleuze because like the fucking IDF used 1,000 plateaus and all. I don't know whether that's true or not, if that's any validity.
Definitely true.
No, it's true, but I think that
They use the nomadology to study like their enemies.
Yes.
Like to
Yeah,
study.
exactly.
yeah. But that being said, I think even but Deleuze predicted it. I mean, there's always reterritorializations of even the war machine. The state always has to appropriate a war machine. But that being said, from the perspective of the war machine, that is where you get to find this sort of neo authenticity of warfare itself. But that being said, I mean, I don't think like, I mean, maybe it happens in Europe sometimes, but I don't think the whole thing where like, these like lower class white kids go and join ISIS. I mean, I don't know if that's, I mean, it must
That's
be
just
still
because they're all redheads, and redheads
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
that.
Well, they're all Scythians, right? That's why they're,
They're ancestral blood memory.
If you have red
I
hair
thought it was
and you
'cause they
don't
had no
become an
souls.
alcoholic,
Well, you remember Saddam Hussein's second man in charge? He was a red-headed guy.
Yeah.
He looks
Yeah.
Scottish or something. But I do want to go.
so Philip Daniels said apparently Amy Therese is back. They lifted her suspension.
Nice.
Wow.
Now-
By the way, Lev, we must have Amy Therese on
Absolutely.
the show. Yeah.
But real quick, I do want to say, because I'm going to hold it in my head a little bit still, this idea that you guys have of John McCain's son. You guys are so sure about this guy, like that. You
Yes.
know, yes,
Yes, I am.
100%. You don't know him. You've never met him. You've
He's
never.
a mark. His
He might be
He's
a
a
family-
nice
mark for
guy.
himself.
His
might
his
be a
family-
nice guy. I don't care.
His family.
Another wrestling term, a mark for himself.
I just
he's
don't
a
know.
mark in that like they don't know what they're doing. It's like he's part of the lower crust of the upper caste, pretty much. Like the people who don't really know what they're doing and kind of wash out.
Yeah.
No, but the idea that we talked about before of him going into the military and it just being for like drugs and things like that, you don't know that. None of us.
I
know
mean,
that.
it's-
Well,
It'll
no,
be-
it's
No,
just
no, I'm
there
not
so in
saying he
15
knows
years when he
that.
runs for Congress, he can be like, I served in the military.
It's kind of hard
And
to.
it's just like good optics, you know.
It's hard to think that somebody like the son of John McCain, who's himself very cynical and very he knew what he's doing to some extent, like would not understand what his father did and what he was doing.
I
You
mean,
know what
I mean,
Also,
maybe,
they
but
I
have
think
their
they
own
understand, but
justification.
they say that it's for the greater good of American
Exactly.
democracy. Or
Yeah, he
some
could have. Yeah, he
bullshit.
could have just drank the Kool-Aid, and you could
Yeah.
be right. Maybe
can
you're
justify
you're
anything.
more nice. You're more optimistic than.
No, it's
Well,
not. It's not about optimism. Like I really want to, with BTR in general, to break any of these, very solid assumptions that
We need
everybody...
John McCain's. We need
Yes,
Hunter
exactly.
Biden on the stream in order to.
No,
Hunter
no,
Biden's
because
cool. I like Hunter
things,
Biden.
some things are
Gays
being,
based.
some things become a given to a lot of people within a certain community. And
Yeah.
my concern is like, okay, so these things become a given, they become gospel, and people don't really question them. And I think it weakens all of us at the end of the day that we don't
That's
actually
fair.
question
I
them.
think with the case of John McCain, his son, his family, like I think almost like generationally, you can see kind of like this is like physiognomy, but you can see pretty much the internal character traits play out and like get more physically manifest. And if you look at like Meghan McCain or whatever, it's like these are not people who are very like honorable or like operating on some like prime directive that's like pointing them towards like their genetic line being purified and having honorable intentions.
I got to take a look.
In a different life, she'd be a
Meghan
slam
McCain.
pig on the side of the road. No, sorry.
Meghan McCain's her connection to America is when she played pretend as a kid. This is what she says every time she has to talk about her thing. That's all it is to her. It's playing.
It's just like the physical manifestation, I think, of like genetic lines, like beliefs and stuff, kind of manifests itself over generations.
So
that's
you
my
don't
opinion, at
think?
least.
Do you think, Paul? Then do you think that the Fritz Springmeier bloodlines of the Illuminati thing? Do you think that's still a force now, or those bloodlines have become so like deracinated and corrupted that
I
that's
think
not even...
I'm not 100% sure about that, but because I haven't read it, but is that essentially saying that there's certain like bloodlines that essentially they work to purify themselves, and that's I think there's an aspect to even technology and that sort of thing and exploitation for your own gain that at a certain point you get self-aware to the point where you have to either confront it and realize what you're doing is bad, or you embrace it, and then with the embrace of that you shut yourself off to certain rationality and like wisdom. And you make a choice, and you kind of, it's almost like it's like the difference between like Satanism and like believing in God and that sort of thing, or like believing in evil, believing in good.
You reach the crossroads.
You reach the crossroads, you make a choice, and from that point on, if you choose wrong, you might get more power and that sort of thing, but your choices are going to become increasingly irrational because there's certain like things you have to like believe yourself in order to continue that make you fundamentally irrational.
There is an intoxication with this sort of like Illuminati.
You have to smoke a lot of crack to do what Hunter Biden was up to.
Yeah.
Well, speaking
there's
of
an
Hunter
intoxication of evil itself. I think this is, again, this goes to like the arguments, and this is Augustinian theology. This is St. Paul. Like the further away you move from the Lord, the more you move towards madness, towards darkness, and that darkness fundamentally will consume you. But that being said, I it's almost like you have in some ways, they're so evil and terrible, but you almost feel sorry for those people that run this world because of how evil they are and how corrupted their soul is. And I truly believe
and who'd want to run it? Like, I'd rather relax.
Well, we have speaking of relaxing, we have a comment from Aman Sadhu. Aman Sadhu, the great Aman Sadhu, I believe he is back. I don't know if it's the real Aman Sadhu, but this tweet may point us to it being the real Aman Sadhu. He says,
is Aman Sadhu a real Sadhu?
Well, we got to find out.
He is.
That's cool.
He's a Sikh.
I read some about it. Those are
but
cool
he's a
group.
Sikh. Can Sikhs be sadhus?
I'm not sure.
I'm
You would know better than me.
There was a
wait, but real quick, Aman Sadhu.
No, that's kind of anti-Sikh in some ways.
So this comment of Aman's, Hunter on to discuss quality of feet and how to determine these things. That's going to be the next BTR.
I shouldn't say that. There was sadhus, there was Sufis, there was a lot of Sufis and Theosophists and Rosicrucians who were in positions of power in the Middle East. I think that's why Gunyan, he went there and he...
Maybe, Lev, for the next BTR where we like swap positions and argue for it, like I can argue for incest and Hunter can argue against it, and we could...
Yeah, but you got to do it. You got to do it unironically, though. You got. You
got to put stepmother on the subtext. You know what's funny? I swear to God, this
stepmother stream.
Yeah, this is I can't believe this. This is
Bard's gonna be tuning in again for that.
You know what's funny? I'm reading, Joel, you'd love this. I'm reading, it goes back to what we were saying about the feminine energy. I'm doing this article because of these slew of pieces about like why incest shouldn't be bad and all this shit. And I was talking with my friend Apex about how in the liberal consent-based model, it's sort of like impossible to persecute. And I was talking about like, there's meme analysis has done stuff on this about like the mommy GF archetype thing. And I was researching, there's this great essay by some fucking academic lit studies feminist, but it was talking about how in goth literature, it was known by sociologists back in the day. They said that the like mommy GF, like the mother-son incest thing is like the most rare form because usually it's the father-daughter. It's like the patriarchy model. But in goth literature, you have like the overbearing, like terrible mother archetype where the mother like sexually manipulates her son. And so she's saying that in this feminist studies professor saying that like that's the most quote unquote queer relationship is like the mother like taking command of her sexuality against the evil patriarchal system. And I'm thinking like, why do you think nowadays this thing around like Milky's and Mommy GF and I want this like total release.
So you're saying it's like banging MILFs is gay?
No. As a MILF appreciator myself, I struggle with this because it's a way of negating the sort of role of traditional male sexuality. And when we do this,
aren't you an appreciator of all women? Like that's what Marcus said earlier.
Yeah.
That like you're kind of like so simp that you transcend like simp to like the alpha chad.
Yeah.
Because if you simp for every single female that exists on the entire internet, you clearly don't care about any specific individual female because, I mean, there are a dime a dozen at that point, right? There's like literally thousands within your like simp catcher.
A reminder of Bimbo Ubermensch. Next week, Bimbo Ubermensch stream on Tuesday.
Oh, that's going to be nuclear simping right there.
Oh, wait.
No, she's a good friend of mine.
Do you know who else we have for that stream? I mean, this is just an update right now on who we have for the Bimbo Ubermensch stream. We have the following people included. We have Athena Hyatt. Nice. We have Bella, Chaotic It Girl.
Oh,
and finally, we have Default Friend.
Oh my God, that's gonna be! I'm gonna simp myself into oblivion. I'm going to achieve the mugshot of simping.
This is the thing, Gio. You're gonna be simping for all four, so none of them are gonna feel special.
Yeah, so I.
So really, you got the flex, man. You got the flex ultimately.
Yeah, it's true.
It's like Uber objectification, man. Like it's.
It's like the tweet I said a few weeks ago about like. I've literally simped myself into just treating women like human beings again. But that's wrong. They're not human beings. They're angels from God. Anyway, sorry.
There was this Russian saying, "Курица не птица, женщина не человек," which I disagree with, but all the Russians here, and it's a weird saying, but it basically means "Курица не птица." It means a chicken is not a bird, and "женщина не человек" means a woman is not a person. But chickens are a kind of bird, right?
Yeah, kind of, a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, they're a pretty shit version of a bird, though. Like, there's like definitely much better birds, like eagles and.
Yeah.
Well, can you get a? Well, it depends on the use because can you get an egg that you can eat from an eagle? Usually not.
No, I mean some people, like some crazy people, have done that. I'm sure.
Yeah, but it takes a lot more effort. So
but an eagle's way more based, dude.
No, I don't. I think pigeons are more based than eagles. Because pigeons can live anywhere, but the eagles, they need all this like special protection. In America, anyway.
And you can eat pigeons.
But eagles are based. They're a sacred symbol for a reason, obviously. They are an apex predator among the birds. And the reason I hate eagles is because me and my old man, we've always had pigeons. In our we have a pigeon coop in our back.
Carrier pigeons.
Yeah. And we at the same time we got rid of them because we determined that we were just basically feeding the local hawk in our area. Like that's literally what we were breeding pigeons for, just to feed the fucking hawk. So
feeding Moloch. That was your version of feeding Moloch.
Oh boy.
Sky Moloch. No, but it is interesting though. Like with pigeons, I can imagine you can have pigeon eggs. Like you can have like little pigeon eggs that you fry in the morning.
Eggs. Yeah, they
right?
do.
Yeah. So
apparently pigeons were a delicacy back in the medieval times in England. Yeah.
Well, here's
I'm sure England really knows about delicacies. They really know.
Oh man. Now, when that actually comes to those good old days back in the day, I'm divided because there has been so much.
There's so much woman beating back in the day.
Well, there's been so much. Again, I didn't
so much
say
based
it
on red pill behavior.
I didn't say it. You did this time around, Gio. But anyway,
the Russian peasants, they couldn't stop beating their wives for 1 second.
Lev seems to want to bring that back.
Oh lordy. No, here's what I'm curious about. What do you think there was back then with these views of society being more cohesive and more together? Because I agree with Logo about the 1950s. Logo, I really like that tweet that you made talking about the nuclear family model, how that's not really sustainable. And back then, people were already pretty tired as soon as it was introduced. And even with the houses, like from what I understand,
you guys need to read Resurrection by Tolstoy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you'll realize why it's good to be modern.
No,
this is why Tolstoy was terrible, by the way.
No,
not based,
dude,
not
he's totally right. It's like it was so fucking horrible, like the medieval world. It was so awful, and I get so fucking. It's like it's good to be not
Was it evil?
like
Was it bad for
constantly
everybody, or was it just
raped,
bad
like
for
all the time, and like have like 9 of your children die, and that's like not. I know people like are able to ignore it in like the 4chanist
Yeah,
culture.
now
Yeah,
we
but
just
John,
have,
but
now
that's
we just have
actually
5
true.
abortions.
Yeah, exactly. There you go, right? Like, no, but John, I get that argument. This is what we talk about. I argue with Lev all the time, is that the problem is the technology itself has allowed us for a greater material level of existence. But at the same time, I mean, that I think if the medieval people, I mean, it's to me, tradition always implies a level of futurism in some ways, in that it's really the impossibility of return, a true return in some way should motivate us to weed out what
None of
is
this reactionary.
Yeah. Well, here's a partial return. The partial return
just-
is that just
yeah.
right now there was a delivery man who delivered a box, which I'm going to get right after the stream is over. And inside of that box, there's cases
Drugs.
of raw milk, which
Oh,
you could
the-
say
yeah,
is kind
drugs.
of kind of like a drug, you know, as far as the legality goes. But anyway, there's cases of there's raw milk,
Yeah.
there's raw kefir, there's raw yogurt, there's raw cheese. I get this from this semi-local dairy which delivers it to me, and I believe it's an Amish dairy, so people are still living like that in certain areas.
Yeah, I think.
And
yeah. I think
Exactly. They go to the
future-
hospital if they.
I think the future is.
I'm
it's-
okay for
it's-
now,
it's-
Logan,
it
thank you.
enables people to kind of synthesize like the good aspects of now and the good aspects of the past, if they want to. And I don't think most people will or be capable of that. But I think for the people who are capable, that will be an option. Like you said, like being able to get
Well,
fresh milk and meat.
think-
That
I
kind
think
of
it's-
goes back. Yeah.
I think it's deeply tragic that like the family, like not the nuclear family, but like the extended family has been like ripped apart,
Yeah.
and that
agree.
we don't have a sense of like the majority of people
Yeah,
like
I would. Yeah, I would.
don't have a sense of like continuity with like previous generations. They don't
I
have
think
like
though.
they don't inherit traditions from them in terms of just like everyday life.
I think that's more. I think
in the
like
same
you're
way.
definitely right on the whole. It's definitely been hurt by a lot, but I think it's almost it's more people now have more choice to either like consciously do that or
I
unconsciously.
don't know if it was
do that.
entirely a choice. Like I feel like industrialization, you know, put a lot of pressures on people to live
Artificially.
differently.
Yeah, but then we
and
still
this,
have
But
we
they,
still
but
have groups
yeah,
like the Italians and the Jews.
Yeah.
Like I'd say, Gio, you're
Yeah.
Italian. You know what it's like to have a family that loves you, is there for you. Like it's a very special thing. So those two communities, I think, like obviously not just them, but the Italians and the Jews are the ones who have been able to have like a cohesive family structure, and not with like I don't know, like there is technology and there are things that distract
But
people.
that's
but
going away too. Like there's no longer any like big
it's-
Mediterranean.
yeah, but
Go
it's
ahead, Paul.
going away on like a mass scale. But I think, and I say this from so I was raised in, like you said, like a nice loving extended family or whatever. And so I knew my relatives, that sort of thing, hung out with them on holidays and that sort of thing. I think it's going from the point, and this is similar to how I think about OnlyFans and how prostitution has been normalized. I think it's going from the point where people kind of almost lucked into those objective goods to the
Right.
point where if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to get got and you're going to lose that stuff.
Do you
But
know
if-
how popular?
but if you do know,
prostitution was
but
in
you
the-
know,
in the-
but if what I'm saying is, but if you do know what you're doing, you're going to end up keeping those traditions, keeping those things, and it's going to end up with people who are consciously doing all those things.
yeah, definitely.
rather
Like
than-
people are going to be either rebuilding it if they don't have it and know that that's
Yeah.
something that
But-
they
but
should
I
have
think-
had and they want to provide for their children and children's children. And,
oh, wait, so
and-
small
yeah.
follower,
Yeah,
you were
John,
saying
please,
before
please.
about the process.
I mean, I don't want to get down the whole like route of memeing, Foucault or something, or like, but I mean, it's just prostitution. If you're just specifically, how about this? The degeneracy theory, basically, that people have, and like which is a kind of conservative reactionary narrative that's gone on for a really long time. I just no longer, well, there's a major irony to what I'm saying, but I don't really know if I buy it. I don't think that much of the population like actually truly is even capable of participating in decadent or degenerate behavior. And I really don't know if I'd buy how much the like the family structure has really broken down, at least in
But that's demonstrable. Like birth rates have dropped, divorce rates are massively higher. Like people's entire like what's considered normal.
Yeah, I don't
in terms
think.
of like access to like family members is like entirely changed.
But just think about the phenomenon of like 4chan culture and like online internet fascism and whatever, all and like SJWism. This is all a symptom of like literally extremely cloistered like suburbanism that is still massive, like at least in first world countries where like you have people who are still in nuclear families. There might be divorces, but I mean it's like it's still...
Yeah, I don't think it's as bad as people think it is, but I think it is worse.
Forms.
It's worse than it used to be, but it is.
There's different forms. I think of
it's in between. It's in between. Nothing's changed, and it's the end of the world. Yeah. I think it's a transitionary period of conscious people
there's
getting
different. Yeah,
I mean, in almost any period of time, right? There's going to be people who are like fucking wise on the uptake and can adapt and fucking flourish or whatever.
Yeah.
But the problem is like even if you're one of those people, which a lot of people here are probably self-selected or more capable of probably like seeing at least the trends that exist and then being able to like at least being able to acknowledge like what actually is in the world, which isn't the case for a lot of people. But even in that position, you still have to live in a world where everyone else is like in this sort of position, right? So
it's like different ontology.
Yeah. So it's like right. Like I want to have kids, right? But I want to have kids, but I like they're also going to have to live in this world. And it's like, what institute? Like, how do I would I feel okay with like sending them to a public school or things like that? This is like something I think about,
or even a private school.
Yeah, and like and like depends
look, like
on
in New York
school.
City, there were these protests of individuals recently. I think it was at the Beardley School. I don't know how to say it. It's like this highfalutin private school in New York City. And there was a teacher who was speaking out another one, and the parent was speaking out at that one. And they were talking about just how woke things are getting and how militarized all of this stuff is in terms of the propaganda the kids are exposed to. I'm at least happy that some people are speaking out about it. And look, you could say whatever you want about Barry Weiss. I don't remember, Gio, what problem you have with Barry Weiss.
Gio is anti-Semite.
You're gonna have to see.
She's an imperialist.
No, Barry Weiss.
This is a big problem, isn't it, Paul? Anti-Semitism.
She was like, well, she has a big nose, and I really dislike people with big noses.
No, Barry Weiss. She helped destroy people's careers, but now that she did it to herself. But no, I think
whose career did she destroy? I want to take a look at this.
She went after people for a very long time over different issues as part of the. Had like basically like she wasn't the head, but she was part of the New York Times editorial board, and she like did a lot of like very sus things against her political enemies.
Yeah, she has like a pretty big double standard with like Zionist stuff and that sort of thing. Which I mean, I don't
classic like
which is fine. Who cares?
Position.
But like it is like when she talks about other free speech stuff, like it does discount her.
No, but did she forbid other people from speaking freely on
quite explicitly? Yes. Yeah. She did, but I
look,
think to
that's
Paul's
good,
point as a small follower. What I was going to say is I think that there's different levels of quote unquote degeneracy, and we do see an intensification. But at the same time, I agree with what John is saying about like that there is sort of like, I mean, I'm a product of as well, like cloistered, but my position in life, I'm very accustomed to being around working class people. And I think that the degeneracy you see is the breakdown of the family and sort of like these vices that you see among like construction workers, which I'm primarily accustomed to, is like, very easy one-dimensional like addictions and divorces and like cheating and shit. And that's like the proletarian form of like the breakdown.
I guess I just don't buy like here, I'll give you an example.
Like not every person is like vaping IPA, weed, and like subbing to ALA OnlyFans.
No, but I mean, like if you just like like.
It's not even about the moral aspect. It's also about like it's just really hard, I think, for people to raise a family these days. Economically, it's harder. Economically, it's hard. Like it's not social institutions set up to like support it like there used to be. And it's more like just a position, not of like, oh, everyone's immoral, because I think a normal person still ultimately wants to have a family. But it's just like,
class
it's just more like,
mobility, and
it's just like, shit's harder to do it right, and
But
to,
also
and to have your like
structures.
family around you, and have traditions around you that made this easy, like it did one day. And you see this, I see this in the difference between ethnic communities and white communities in where I live.
You could even
that, like,
compare
ethnic
it to
communities have a more like intense tradition and embedded familial structure, because they're in a foreign state. They have to stick together. They have to work harder to maintain these things.
Yeah, you could even compare it to the blacks who, like Malcolm X era blacks to now in America, like the quality of the leaders they have and that sort of stuff, and the family structures they have, and it definitely, it's not impossible, but it's getting harder.
Are you saying Maxine Waters is a bad leader? Is that what you're saying?
No,
anyway, boys, I got to bounce, so I'll catch you guys later.
Yeah, this is great.
Oh, thank you, my
so much
friend
for
Joe.
coming
I
in.
love you, buddy.
Hold on, let me
gonna bounce too.
Let me show some of
I
your
should
stuff.
go. Yeah.
Okay, hold on.
I guess
since
this
we're all
is
going,
we'll have to do this
okay,
again.
since we're all going here, I'm going to advertise stuff. So Logo got out of here faster than Sonic the Hedgehog, but I'm still gonna show his stuff right now.
He's got to go fast.
Don't buy any of his stuff.
No. Buy
do not
stuff,
buy
stuff.
ampersand. Do not buy selfie/suicide. So.
Yeah, here are all the links. This
I have
is where
to buy
you go.
ampersand, actually.
Yeah, ampersand, selfie, suicide. This is where you go. And Joel Davis. Let's show some of Joel's stuff over here. So Joel Davis.
Go and
YouTube
read
channel.
Firstness Journal.
Yes, Firstness. I'm going to put that in right now here. Firstness.org. Here it is. And also Imperium Press. Hold on, where is that?
Cast. What the fuck is that?
Oh yeah.
If you go to imperiumpress.org, you'll see my friend's fantastic publishing company, and if you go to imperiumpress.org/imperiumcast, you'll be able to listen to and download our podcast.
Here is.
Kill me.
Here is the link. Now, small
follower. Show.
What do you have to show?
Right now, the whole time I was being on this podcast, I was working on the Frank Castle video that's coming out in a few hours. I was censoring gay porn that I put in it. So if you're a little bit weary about gay porn, you don't want to watch the upcoming episode. No, but
is there a bar? Is there an Alexander Bard uncensored version?
yeah. No, but it's a good episode.
For all the shamanoids out there.
So
Yeah,
people can support. Okay, so people can support you by going Gumroad, Frank Hassel, and Small Follower. Follow Small Follower on Twitter, twitter.com/smallfollower. Here we go. This
also,
is
go and buy my art. DM me if you want prints. I just came out with an excellent lino cut of a Waco burning. So,
twitter.com/giant
Mom's Basement. The podcast that
Keemstar
Keemstar does, because I edit that now.
Oh, you edit Keemstar's podcast?
Yeah.
Holy
nice.
shit. But Lev, I have a new video that sees me printing the first run of the Waco burning lino cut.
I'm linking up right now. Yeah, Waco burning. Yeah, so many
and
things
also
have been
subscribe
happening.
to Birdie and Paul Town podcast.
Yeah, you go to podcast.paul.town.
Yeah, my episode's the best one that they ever did.
Don't listen to that. That's the
Geodes.
one that I hate. I'm gonna probably delist it.
I got the title of the
in
longest
that episode. I shit in a toilet, and you can hear it very clearly.
Yeah, we'll have Lev on. I mean, next week.
All right.
We have to make like a Twitter like Twitter e-celeb like compilation.
I don't want to be part of that.
Similar to like Buyer's Market, where like John Pellet shits and like never mind. Hello? Do not look up Buyer's Market, please. Don't look.
What's
please,
up, man?
for the love of God.
The current video I'm working on is very Buyer's Market as.
Oh no!
Well, I'd like to welcome.
Yeah, do not look up Peter Solis Buyer's Market. This has been amazing. This is everything I expected. I mean, I love all of you guys.
I love you too.
Yeah. Oh, also, if you want to learn about the second economy, go to book.paul.town.
Yes.
It would have been way funnier.
It is the
to be
secret.
Like, I was really disappointed by this guy's this window.
Yeah, this is terrible. No, I have all three of them, but this one is handy. It is the sequence. It's the latest one. Buy all three of them, please. It's like filled with gems. You could just and you could eat them like cookies. The little parables.
Yeah, it's like junk food in written form.
Yeah.
Junk food for your brain.
And you don't even have to read them all at once. You could just flip through them, like right here. Holy shit, you have fucking yeah. There's this one. I keep going to this one. King. I was going through your follow list and found quite a few problematic individuals that I don't like. You probably weren't aware, but back in 2016, this individual and I that you are now following had a sort of falling out. We got angry at each other on social media about subtweeting me. But so it's amazing. Go and buy them. Go and subscribe to. Well, I don't have to go and tell you. Go and subscribe to Keemstar. That small follower is editing now. But maybe Daniel Keem can come on the show sometime.
No, actually, I probably shouldn't even say that.
Oh, wow. Okay, sorry.
Just
Yeah, I
nothing,
might
John.
get in some trouble.
I have a plan on getting more
The
like big
Keemstar to
people on
Sam Hyde
BTR.
pipeline.
Yes. So here's the plan. I'm gonna create artwork. My dad and I are gonna create artwork for the prospective guests before they even come on, before they even know they're invited. So I'm gonna make like artwork out of like some big high cloud guests, and I'm gonna post the artwork, and that's going to attract them to actually coming on in the first place. So I thought of that idea, and I'm going to accomplish it, and we're gonna see what happens. And guys, let us know, who do you want to be on BTR? But again, I'm not looking for brilliant esoteric people right now. I am looking for people with clout. I am looking for people with a lot of clout who can bring a lot of followers, because we have to keep.
But we
growing
also
this
do
thing.
look for esoteric people to bring on with those people.
But we
who
already have
clout.
enough of them. They're great. I love
Yeah,
No,
them.
we
there's too
need
many of them.
more. We need more.
They've had their
You
say.
are
This
enough,
is-
Gio. You are
There's
enough.
a reason they're esoteric.
And Paul Town.
Yeah.
Yes. No, Paul, you were great. I mean, the stream is not over yet, but I just want to say, Paul, this is the first time we've ever had you on, and I love you, man. Like the kind of the way that you speak, it's great. Like I
thank
want
you for
to
having me on.
Thank you for coming. Eventually, I would love for you to shed the Nicolas Cage mask.
Oh, I
and,
will eventually. I will.
Yes, that would be a good time for everybody. Once again, I know you guys want to go to the Eggy stream, and please go to the Eggy stream, but before you go to the Eggy stream, when this stream ends, you're going to see a link for our upcoming stream on Thursday, and that's going to be the reverse debate stream. That's going to be the Argue My Position on Democracy, and we are still looking for somebody to argue democracy with Armand. So again, somebody with a lot of followers, somebody big. I'm not going to lie to you people. You know that we got to keep growing BTR, and we need big people in here so that they could bring their following. That's just the way it works. The algorithm's not doing us any goddamn favor, so this is the way we have to do it, and I appreciate everybody's help on this. Go to Twitter. Let us know, who do you want to see on this democracy stream coming up arguing for democracy, who would usually be against democracy, because Armand is for democracy and he's going to be arguing against it. So get Buffalo Navalny on. That's brilliant. Yes. So, okay, over here.
Can I just say one thing? Yeah, no.
Go for it.
So Gio knows, but I've been around for a while, and I'm very usually wary about like panel streams and that sort of stuff. And YouTube, I would say like Lev, like your show is definitely is definitely one of the best. Like people should definitely support you guys and
Thank you.
your Patreon, that sort of thing, because you're actually interested in actually talking about stuff, and you're not like trying to like it's the end of the world or blah blah blah. You know, you're not shilling some sort of like apocalypse thing to make money or get attention. You're actually discussing stuff, and you're doing a very valuable thing by. You've mentioned this before, but with basically showing you can be like you're honestly addressing things and have people who wouldn't normally talk to each other. So it's a very valuable thing.
I really appreciate that. And well, that's why we got a $50 patron quite recently, and we're gonna keep doing this. We are expanding on all the other platforms. So catch us on Twitch. We've gotten some Twitch subscribers today from this stream, but this is the link to the Twitch right here. Twitch.com/break Twitch.tv.
DLive.
Yes, DLive. Please subscribe to us on DLive as well. Here we go. This is the DLive stream, and all these streams, by the way, they simulcast both on DLive and Twitch at the same time now.
And they archive to Odyssey as well.
That's right. Odyssey here, odyssey.com. /break the
Apparently
rules.
it's there forever. So.
It's there forever. You can't get rid of it. So this is where you go. Please
follow
us. Yes,
the sins
follow
of
us. Follow us on
of
Odyssey. And Also, why not? Here's what else is happening on so Psychedelic Stream. I mentioned that one this Friday with Owen Cyclops and Daniel Pinchbeck. Speaking of meeting of opposites,
When's it going to be, Lev?
That's going to be Friday. That's coming
Three
right up.
In one fucking...
That's right.
Wow.
But that's not all. Then on Sunday we are going to have a stream from yours truly. I'm going to be doing my latest NFT. You've been looking at it. Like, how do you think it's going so far? This muscles that I've been drawing
it's going
lately.
Pretty good. Yeah. It's pretty nice.
It's going to, I don't think it's going to be finished, but I'm going to keep working on it, and it's going to be this Sunday with Aiden Paladin, as you could see here, and Made a Nomad, who was dressed to the nines in his beautiful glasses from Gurren Lagann. So maybe we'll even talk about Gurren Lagann and how Made a Nomad loves Gurren Lagann. I have no idea if he does. I don't know if he even watches anime, but I want to talk about Gurren Lagann. Anyway, that is what is going down on my YouTube channel, so subscribe to my YouTube channel as well, and follow me on Twitter, guys. Twitter.com/Levpo, Levpo. I got Twitter in 2009. That's why it's so short. So follow me on Twitter over here, and we are just about done with the stream. Is there anything else you guys want to say before we finish this off?
It's just been a pleasure. You guys are
been
great.
amazing.
Absolutely, it has been amazing. Take care, everybody. Subscribe,
God bless.
subscribe, and subscribe right now. All the people who are here, 99 people, subscribe right now. Subscribe. Mwah! Good night, everybody. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
God bless.